Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from Nathan Does Beer.
And welcome to episode 176 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast Adjunct series. Nate, we are going to the county this evening, sir.
Yes, one of our favorite beer destinations in the province.
Absolutely no question. I personally haven't been to a brewery with a better view. I can't think of one, at least off the top of my head. Anyway,
yeah, neither
not
can
even
I.
just in Canada.
Neither can I.
And both of us frequent the county at least, once or twice a year.
Yep.
I haven't been, as I was just saying off air there, I don't think I've been to the county in God knows like 4 or 5 years when I haven't gone to this place. So it's like a must stop every time anyone's going in that area. It's top of the list. We've been meaning to get these guys on for ages, so I'm very happy that we're finally doing this. Excited to hear the story and the beers and how that gorgeous view came to be.
Absolutely.
God damn it! So guys, please welcome Nick from Slake Brewery. Wait! Here it is in the building.
Yeah.
What happened? Can you hear it? Well, we're clapping. Nick, welcome, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I don't know what happened to the clap. Why didn't that happen? Did you guys hear the clap?
We could hear it right off the bat.
Yeah. I couldn't hear it. Okay, something's going on today, but it's okay. Tech. Nick, great to have you, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. Like we're saying, big fans of everything you guys do, and long time coming.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Man, pleasure and an honor. So let's get into something.
Yeah.
We're going to start off. Nick, you were very thoughtful with a series of lower ABV beers, so it's a little gentler this evening.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with Yellow Flowers.
Yeah.
It's a table beer. Yeah, 3.5%.
So when you say table beer, just to clarify, are you talking like a Belgian style sort of table beer?
Yeah.
Type of thing?
It's basically it's all local malt, which we'll probably talk about a little bit, but we use exclusively Barnell malt for everything. Contributes a lot of malt character.
Amazing.
And this one's just copiously hopped with saws. All the bittering is done with 1.5 alpha saws. So it's just it's got some bitterness backbone to it, but it's just got took a lot of hops in the kettle. Could be it's not the most kettle additions of hops, but it's pretty close. And that's for a 3.5% table beer. So
why is that?
Why is that?
Is it just that Saaz is you need a bunch of it to kind of deliver?
Well, Saaz is traditionally a really low alpha hop.
Okay.
That's just how it is, and particularly the past year or two. Whereas previous years might be 3.5% alpha. Again, I'm kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here, so just let me know if it's too deep. But the past year or two, conditions in the Czech Republic have been a little different, and as a result, the alpha is much lower. I've been kind of into that. It just means we use more saws, and I think there's more flavor. It's good head retention in this on draft, and very flavorful beer. The yeast ester profile with the malt and the saws, I think, just makes for a very flavorful 3.5% beer. So yeah, I'm loving this one. Going into the summer season, to me, I'm 43. I have 2 dads. I'm sleep deprived. I love beer. This is what I want, this kind of style. So
hell yeah. I love that. Gentlemen,
cheers.
Get that in you. Nose is awesome. Kind of phenolic a little bit, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and that was sort of a thing. I'm fermenting it pretty cold. I wasn't going to. I wanted traditional saison character and phenolic flavor, but really subdued. So traditional saison yeast can ferment it kind of 18 to 28. DuPont is can be up to 30 even. Okay. So we're keeping this one, and the hotter that you do it, the more yeast character and yeast esters are popping. For better or for worse, right? And so again, we're looking for a nice approachable beer that you could be drinking and you could think about it or you could not think about it. And so we sort of subdue it. I think this particular batch was 19.5 degrees, maybe 20. So like really it's fermenting, but there's no like roaring ferment to it. It's like really gentle. So again, there is phenolic character to it, but it's not more so than like the sweetness of the malt, or it's not more so than like the sauce character. It's there, but it's like not too crazy. So, but we knew that we wanted yeast ester profile for it just because it's 3.5%. You do want flavor there. And that's just one of the components to sort of like give a little punch there to Flavor Town.
I love that. And it's super balanced when you're talking like with the phenolic stuff. I feel like it's kind of almost more in the nose, and then everything else just kind of like.
I would agree with that. It does come through on the palate too, though, and but I think that like, and I never would have thought of this combo, but like the hop flavors that you get off the sauce, like kind of like that peppery note, like really works well with like with that subtle phenolic character. It's like it actually goes really well together.
Yeah. There's some like lemongrass or some sort of vibe in there, like a touch of like grassy citrus type of thing going on.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy crushable.
I think also with the sweetness too, which we often get in a lot of our beers. Like can sort of segue a little bit into the grain here, but we are using a lot of malt from Brownell. I have a really good relationship with Devin there, and we're getting 1 or 2 deliveries a week. We're dealing with a lot of grain, which is grown in the county or just off the county and then malted, I don't know, probably 30 kilometers away. He brings it down, and so we've done a lot of research together the past few years, figuring out barley varietals, what works for flavor, what works for the Ontario grower, pest resistance, yield per acre. So like there are some varietals that, I might want and farmers aren't so keen on because they don't yield quite as well, or they're not drought resistant, or all these sorts of things. And so, once we decided kind of right out of the gate that this was going to be something that we did, I knew it was going to be a lot of work. It's not just like ordering a lot of malt, which just comes and is usually blended and always hits certain spec. Like, this is going to be the extract, this is going to be the protein, this is going to be the moisture content.
Right.
This changes lot to lot and varietal to varietal. And we've done a lot of work sort of dialing it in, and have gotten to a place where I think we're pretty comfortable. But a lot of stuff that I had done in the past brewing wasn't necessarily applicable to these particular local varietals. And it also results in a good amount of residual sugar sometimes, unless I intend for it not to, but it takes a lot more work for me to make a dry beer, like a really dry beer, than it would with other malts. And so like this is dry. It is a phenolic saison yeast. So it by nature deals with a lot of the sugars and makes it dry, but it does have more residual sweetness and body than you would normally find in a saison. So whereas this is only 3.5%, but its starting gravity, the amount of sugar that was in it, if you use traditional malts, it kind of has the body of an equivalent beer that's like 4.5%, if that makes sense. There's more sugar in it. It just finished higher. So the ABV is lower as a result.
Gotcha. Interesting. So the difference between the more like the Barnell malt and the specialty malt you get for this and say like regular malt, is it just that sort of finishing sugar content, or is there, because you said
No, there's a lot of differences. So like, just talking to Devin, actually, I think it was yesterday, we noticed that one particular batch, we have 3, as of, I guess, this week, we have 3 SKUs in the LCBO. And we were noticing that one was a little lighter in color than it had been in a previous batch. And I reached out to Devin and was just like, what's going on, dude? Like, it's still good. Just like, again, is it that I'm looking at lots, I'm making sure whatever information I have, I'm trying to like account for these differences and trying to make a consistent product with stuff that's always changing is a hilarious endeavor. But I was just like, what variable changed? He's like, oh yeah, as we transition to malting in the malt house, when the humidity's hot, a little higher, and the temperature's a little higher, I just have to tweak the temperature of the kiln or something equivalent like that. Like, I don't know what it was. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. He's like, the color will be on spec. He's delivering tomorrow. He's like, that batch will be like a little darker. And so it's just like that kind of these little tweaks and stuff. Not only, like, literally he malted it, like, I don't know, yesterday, right? So I couldn't be getting fresher stuff, which is pretty awesome. But these are the little things that we have to deal with. And like, he gets tonnage from like a certain farm. We go through that. Then we get another, like, a lot from another farmer. And it's slightly different in a bunch of ways. Like, it could be that the extract is different, like noticeably. And so if I'm doing a double brew, like if I know that, then I'll make a double brew. The first batch, I'll sort of see where it lands and then account for it in the second batch, blend them, and then I'll like hit spec. But there's a lot of these kind of weird tweaks all the time that we have to be hyper aware of pretty much all the time, because we're not using this product. And I love it. I love doing it. And I love, you know, that we're able to buy like quantity of this malt. But yeah, it's funny when I go to other places. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you do it, eh? That's interesting. A lot easier. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. I mean, overall, then the outcome is worth it. The little extra work.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think one of the beers that I sent you guys was the German Pilsner Mosey, and that's like our straight ahead German Pils, which I just think, again, it showcases the malt quite a bit. And to me, it's worth doing that. I think we talk about a sense of place here often, and how that's important to us and establishing the brewery here. And, you know, I would argue, well, certainly the biggest local maltster in Ontario is 30 kilometers away from us. You know, we're on a farm. We're on 100 acres here, using local agricultural. You know, barley seems like a natural fit for us. And yeah, the learning curve, there certainly was one, but I think we're pretty happy with where we've landed now.
That's awesome. I guess it does sound pretty perfect. I didn't realize where Barnell were located, so that makes much
just
more
north
sense.
Of Belleville. Yeah, like
okay, like just off the island. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. It'd almost be like crazy not to use them if you can support local and, you know, actually have that differentiator.
Yeah, we went with them exclusively because I thought originally, like, okay, well, if we start and we go with CMC or RAR, like a very reliable product, and then we establish something, we're like, okay, guys, so I'm going to make it all really complicated and hard now. The yields are going to be worse, and I can't guarantee it's going to taste the same. It's a bit of a tough sell to Greg and Eric, my business partners. So this way, you know, we went with it and we just sort of stuck with it because it's worked. And Devin's been great too, as we've been growing, just forecasting for each subsequent year, keeping him in the loop and like making sure that he can deal with like increased volume, which there is an increase, right? And he's not just some massive maltster, right? Like I need a reliable source of malt. That's pretty important. So him being able to provide that has been great.
That's awesome, man. I love that. This beer is spectacular. I feel like I nearly finished this already. Like,
yeah, same.
Crazy. Dangerous. Is this a year rounder or is this like a summer? You mentioned earlier about coming into the summer. Or is this just the season?
Yeah, it's kind of just a seasonal. Like we did it when we first came out. We had 6 core brands. We had 2 pale ales, 2 lagers, and essentially 2 saisons.
Right.
We opened in COVID, really smooth move, and launched 2 saisons as core brands. Yeah. So no, it's not a core brand anymore. It's more or less just it's just available in the summer, like and sort of shoulder
spring
season as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it felt like Yellow Flowers is given spring pretty heavy.
Yeah. And it is sort of a niche-y product, but like people that seem to like it really like it, and then, you know, we move on. whatever. By the time you roll around to September, October, we're doing other stuff. And I think, people are happy to also drink other stuff as well. So
yeah,
it's got its place. We tried it for a couple of years over the winter, and it worked, but it is a 3.5%. Like, I'm going camping tomorrow night. I'm going to bringing this beer. That's what I want for this time of year. So
that makes complete sense. Yeah, dude.
One thing that I like about this and about your guys' whole vibe in general is that, because I know that your vibe is that like your beers are very easily approachable. But like the thing that I find interesting about this is that like approachable does not mean boring. Like this is certainly very interesting. And for a 3.5% beer, just on its face, you might not expect this level of complexity, and it's and it really delivers on that. It's certainly anything but boring.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think that's sort of, pretty much exactly what we're hoping to do with these types of beers, is keep it approachable. And I often say, like, I call them no thinkies. Like, you can kind of just crush them. Like, I'm talking to you guys, like, no thinky, we're just chatting. Or, or you can think about them and be like, oh yeah, that nose, that peppery nose, like it's really working with the clovey sort of phenolics I'm getting, and go into it if you want.
I like that.
But that's sort of essentially the premise of most of the styles that we're going for. And just to sort of wax poetic about that, like we really went, that was sort of our philosophy, like really keeping it low ABV was really low ABV and barrel aged. That was sort of like our ethos right out of the gate. Didn't make an IPA for, I don't really know. I mean, time was pretty weird during COVID. I don't know if you guys remember COVID or not, but like
barely
kind of weird. But it was probably like a year and a half before we made an IPA and sort of realized like I loved IPAs. It was just sort of something that we kind of never really got into. And then we started doing it. We're like, oh yeah, we like IPAs. Why have we been doing this? Just sort of seemed like there were a lot of people making IPAs. And to tell you the truth, like we didn't even know if we could pull it off and be content with the product using local malt, was it gonna be like some crystally like malt forward West Coast when we're trying to make like a hazier, fruity, citrusy kind of vibe? Is the malt going to showcase too much for a beer that we don't necessarily want the malt to showcase? And like, I personally don't think that it's gotten in the way. Again, it adds this residual sweetness, which obviously works really well with IPAs. And we made a West Coast that's coming out, I don't know, in a week and a half. And nice. Like it's still finished dry. We know how to make these beers finish dry, but if we want, we can make a lot of residual sweetness with these malts. So I would argue that I'm like really keen on how well the grain has worked with IPAs. Again, the IPAs are like, we generally approachable, I would say. I mean, I'll save this for later. We're going to have an IPA later. So
I definitely want to talk about it. I feel like I have an IPA every time I come there. It's something about it sitting on that hill, cracking that
spirit.
Oh, it's just money, bro. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
So to pivot off the beer, I know we're almost finishing up to the next one, but we might as well get started at least. Since this is the first time, love to get the story, man. So your personal story, starting with that, like how you personally discovered beer and how the journey along the way to opening Slake.
Okay. Well, personally, I used to be a classical double bass player. That was my shtick.
No way.
And I played in a bunch of orchestras, and I played in, my first gig was Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra. Damn. And so the principal bassoonist there, Harold, he got me into home brewing, and so got into home brewing there. And then my next gig was Bergen Philharmonic in Norway. And
damn.
Man,
and
you're
that was
messing around.
$20 a pint for beer there. So I was home brewing there quite a bit. And then went to Calgary Philharmonic, and big brewing culture there. They got the Cowtown Yeast Wrangler home brewing group.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
all that to say, like all these orchestras had like quite a bit of homebrewing culture. So I'd been homebrewing for about 10 years. And after Calgary, moved to Toronto, and was looking to change something up. Long story short, went to Niagara College and took the program there. And pretty much immediately, like I started doing, I was a lab assistant to one of the owners of Escarpment Labs, and got into the bugs, Brett, and just propping stuff up. And another student at the time who went to Bellwoods, I went to Indie Ale House, and I got a job at Indie Ale House pretty much like one semester into my program.
What year was that?
And man, I couldn't tell you. A decade ago, something like that.
Decade ago. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's right. Yeah, it's got to be roughly right, give or take a decade. And and so went there and ultimately took over their barrel program. So they had a pretty extensive barrel program. I think when I was there was probably like 30 barrels. And then by the time I left, they had about 150 barrels, 70 puncheons, 530 heck fooders, and probably 3 to 5 30 heck dedicated like wild stainless vessels. That's like a lot of product.
Yeah.
So I worked where Blood Brothers is now. They're on Geary, right in Toronto. And so that's where Indie's barrel cellar was. Blood Brothers and Indie Ale House shared that space. So all the barrels that were there, I was taking care of, and I worked every single day with Dustin and Braden from Blood Brothers in a shared space for 3 years. So I got to know those guys hyper well and watch just sort of how they built a brewery. I was just watching them do it. Pretty good education in exactly how to do this. Pretty small brewing community in Toronto. And so I knew Eric, my business partner, Eric, he was co-owner of Halo Brewing in Toronto. Okay. And then after, I think about a year, Greg, my other business partner, came on board with Halo as well. And so I knew Eric from that community. Halo and Blood Brothers, I don't know, maybe 1.5 kilometers apart, roughly. So we knew each other from then. And kind of time separated. Eric and Greg got out of Halo. And Greg always lived here. This is Greg's property where the brewery is. And he was commuting to Toronto quite a bit. And I'm not sure whether Eric got wind of me or if I heard that Eric was doing something. But we knew that we got together and had a drink in Toronto. And I was like, oh, you're doing something. There's talk between Eric and Greg doing something. And I had a place that I bought in Bloomfield. So Eric was living in Picton. Greg had this property and I was in Bloomfield. And I wanted to do something. I wanted to figure out a way to get here and brew. And we just kind of got together and figured, it's pretty good delegation of skills, or separation of skills. Like I had production. Eric was doing all the sort of back end stuff very well with Halo, and Greg is sales. And we all had experience in the industry, for a few years, and knew what kind of approaches we'd want to take with a new brewery. And came out here. I knew Eric. I didn't know Greg very well, and spent some time here. Came up on weekends, looked at the property. We knew where we wanted to build the brewery. It's on the top of a hill. Spectacular view. Faces the sun. Faces west, so you see the sunset. You can see pretty much where Sandbanks is. There aren't a lot of hills in Prince Edward County, so we've got one of them, and so you could see quite a distance from where we're at. We knew it was going to be a new build, so it probably took us about a year in planning to decide what the building was going to look like, and then probably a couple of years of construction, and then we're coming up on our 4th anniversary this fall. So
amazing.
It's been a while. Like it was quite the thing to and going through COVID and building this building, during COVID, which was a really fun way to end that whole project. Convince tradespeople to be here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and that was the gist of it, and sort of, really working tight with these guys. It was a lot of work to do a custom build for a new building. Oftentimes with breweries, like they are, you get a lease somewhere and kind of see what you've got and, work with what you've got. We could do quite a bit with this new build. We could decide, what we wanted, how much space. Like it was a limited amount of space, right? Like you have your restraints like cash, square footage, zoning,
little things like that.
So, so you've got to like decide and pick and choose. And like clearly the cash cow was like, how are we going to make the most money? I got to go all in on barrel aged product because that's where all the money is. That's a joke. It's not. But we did build a giant cellar in the basement. Like we have a huge cellar, and that was, coming from Indy, and I think just this whole ethos of like well-crafted, subtle beers, complex, delicious endeavors that aren't too sour or aren't too anything really, but like just balanced and well-crafted. So this is like, it's not completely temperature controlled. It is a cellar. So it is, it wavers a bit, but we do have some HVAC down there, so we can keep it pretty accurate, keep the humidity in check. It's a great cellar for barrel aged product, and so we use puncheons down there, which are bigger than regular wine barrels. They've got thicker staves. We were really jazzed about the barrel aged product, but ultimately the market pivoted pretty hard. And barrel aged product, it's still a thing, but for the most part, like Brett barrel aged beers aren't what they were 5 years ago. That's not, people are not going to beer bars and crushing pints of Brett Saisons,
At least in Ontario.
Yeah. No,
maybe Quebec.
No, Quebec is, I know. And honestly, we went to Messerem's festival last year.
Ceremony.
And we brought a bunch of cans of our like barrel aged Saison. Man, went over amazingly. I think that's what we even poured there. Wow. Went over awesome.
Not surprised at all.
Yeah, but it's a different vibe. It's just not in the Ontario market. It's just different, and so not really doing so much of that. But like that was one of the decisions we made, just to bring it all back. We decided that was something that we were going to choose, was to like go big on the cellar. And also by being here, deciding that the view was like something and bringing people here, and that this is where we wanted to be. The trade-off is we're on single phase power. We're on propane, not natural gas. We truck in all of our water. We truck out our wastewater. So that's pretty hardcore, right?
Yeah.
Especially for the amount of water that a brewery uses.
Fuck.
Yeah, we get a truck of water, like a water truck, every couple days, I would say, like a full water truck. Yeah. So, and like on a big weekend in the summer, just not even for brewing, we might bring in the truck twice in a weekend, just for like kitchen, bathroom, tap room, all that. So that's the trade-off. You just got to be vigilant on all the stuff. But again, we thought this was like a pretty magical, special place and wanted people to be here. And that was just sort of one of the decisions was, okay, we're doing this, therefore, ... We're trucking in water for the rest of our lives.
Is there no way? I gotta say, is there any, excuse my extreme ignorance on this, but like, as you're saying all this, I was like, oh man, like is there any way, I guess, one, I know people sometimes have well water, and two, to connect to the city water?
You could do well water. I mean, water is a pretty, I think people have a lot of opinions about water and brewing with water. I could probably make a case for both, but ultimately, some people want to rip water all the way down to RO water and build it back up and have full control over the water. And some people will say they want to use well water, and that makes a sense of place, right? Like back once upon a time, many beers in Germany, the beer styles were invented because the water was what it was, right? And like when you use beer software, you can say, okay, I want what's the water anywhere, like what's Berlin or Dortmund or anywhere, and like the profile will pop up and tell you like the calcium and sulfate and the magnesium and all this kind of stuff. So that dictated what a lot of certain beers were. So if you want to brew these beers, you could start from zero, which some people do. You rip it all the way down to zero and then build it back up. Or you say, I'm going to have, the extreme case would be I'd have well water that's like super high alkalinity, super high, like even pH, and it could make it quite difficult to make certain styles of beer. You'll have a certain character for sure. It's not better or worse. It's just, it is what it is. And for my opinion, for this water is we're getting water from Picton. Picton has a water plant, which is just pulling it from Lake Ontario. We do samples on the water. It is basically Toronto water. Toronto water comes from Lake Ontario, right? So like when I was at Indy, we get water reports, Picton, water reports, pretty much exactly the same, which is to say extremely soft. Right. So like I make a Czech lager in the fall. I don't have to add, no minerals. It's very soft water. Pilsen water is very soft. It's not the same. Obviously, Pilsen water is like almost RO water. It's so close to that. This has some minerals in it, but still extremely low. And if I was making a Czech Pils with well water, it's not even close to a Czech Pils. You'd taste it and be like, this isn't anything similar to a Czech Pils. You'd know right away. So that's one part of it. The second part is a well is a crapshoot. So if you take a drill and you just fire it down, I'm going to make up numbers now, but call it $10,000 or $1,000, doesn't matter. But like, you're like, oh, I'm the well guy. Nice to meet you. I'm going to drill a hole here. Give me $1,000. Oh, there's no water here. Let me go over here. Oh, there's no water here. Or like whatever your demand is, right? So for us, it's not insignificant. We need like a reservoir somewhere. We'd have a well pulling enough water consistently to fill our cisterns, so that we don't have to wait for the pump. We just want to ensure that there's enough water in the cistern. Maybe the well runs dry. Maybe there's sulfur in the well. Maybe it doesn't smell great. The chances are, it's like, how much money do you want to sink into finding a well that is going to work for you? And you could find one. You could just fire it down and be like, we got water, but we're on the top of a limestone hill. They're going to look at it and be like, probably, I have no idea. Again, random numbers. They might be like, we got to drill through 150 feet of limestone before we even, and it could be dry, So these were a few of the considerations, on top of which very likely it would be extremely hard, which is not something we wanted. So those were the considerations. And then the counter to that is like, so we're going to put in 3 cisterns and truck water for the rest of our lives? And the answer is yes, apparently. We're going to do that. You get into this business and you're dealing with a whole bunch of suppliers, and just how many businesses we deal with on the day-to-day, like infinity, basically, box manufacturers, label suppliers, logistics, all this kind of stuff. Our water guy, Dwayne, rock solid. Dwayne is the man. He's here in like an hour. He's like the most friendly guy. I text him. I'm like, Dwayne, we need water. We need it now. He's like, no problem, bud. I'm up there in a second. We just see him ripping up the road. Like, we have the best water supply ever. So like, if anything was bad about our water situation, maybe we'd consider something. But again,
you're good.
Dwayne at George's Water, rock solid. Like
that's the Dwayne.
If there's if there's any one of your vendors that like you need to be rock solid, water's probably a good one to have a Dwayne at.
Yeah, we do need Dwayne's. We need Dwayne clones like for everything. Like honestly, actually, like for our utilities, like our propane, like we're not on natural gas, right? So we need the propane coming up. They monitor it remotely. Like when we're low on propane, the truck comes up in the middle of the night. We just get propane. Like
damn.
We got good suppliers in that regard for utilities. So that's pretty dope. And as it pertains to like actually getting water to run here, it's just no chance. There's no chance. Everybody around here is on a well. So like
that's your only way.
Yeah.
If you were, thank you. That is a fantastic description of everything. I sort of asked because at one point during the pandemic, we considered seriously like buying property in Picton, or at least somewhere in the county. So we were like really actively exploring it. And then all of these words that we didn't know, well water and sewerage sales, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I'm very
Picton's on municipal.
That's on municipal. But like if you got like land out a little bit.
Honestly, like if we drove, I don't know how far, but like 3 minutes, we'd be on municipal water. But you'd have to be driving at 60 kilometers an hour for 3 minutes. So it's like we'd have to lay like whatever that is, like 2 or 3
kilometers
of water line. We don't have 3 kilometers of water line money yet.
Understood. I was more thinking for like apocalypse time. Say if shit hit the fan in society.
Yeah.
And then you're on this property, you've got the best view anywhere to see the shit go down, but then you can't get water because Dwayne's not around. You know what I mean? I was just thinking of dramatic worst case scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably just get buckets from the swamp in the back, put it into our cistern and run it through our charcoal filter. And then our UV light, we'd probably be fine for about 3 months. And then it would break and then we'd go down like everybody else.
That's dark. And the only way to lighten that up is to get into the next one.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I have to go to the kitchen.
Go for it.
To grab it.
Yeah.
I think, did we send the Gose?
Yes.
I think we did a Grapefruit Gose. That's probably the next light beer. That's what I would have said. Let's do that one.
You take your time. Beautiful. That's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. And like just thinking of the logistics of that, of what it would take to even just like what they're currently doing, like getting water trucked in every couple of days. Like that's wild.
So wild. I just honestly, man, I didn't know that was a thing. This is how like ignorant I am about it, but I'm fascinated with the whole like. I like the idea after now having gone from apartment to like a very small piece of land, and it's like, oh, wouldn't it be sick to have a lot of land and then do all this stuff? And I never really thought about the realities of like you go and buy land somewhere or whatever the fuck, and it might be the same thing, and then you have to like, I don't know. I never really thought about it. I think it's fascinating, and I'm sure there's people who grew up in these areas who were just like, of course, dickhead, but like I know I'm a city kid, so this is very fascinating to me. So this one, I haven't had this one. I'm excited for this. So this is a Grapefruit Gose Whisper. Love it.
This was, I guess we released this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I suppose.
Okay.
Brewed it again. I think I brewed it again this week.
Nice.
So yeah, it's going over well. Last year we had quite a few fruited sours. This year we're doing a guava sour, which has like copious amounts of guava. And this one, again, it's sort of more in the balanced realm. This has grapefruit in it, but it's not supposed to be like bang you on the head kind of grapefruit. It's hopefully equally balanced with residual sweetness. There's tartness to it again, but really trying to keep the tart level trying to keep the pH not too low. Mm-hmm. And then the salt profile as well is like definitely present, but not over the top. So again, trying to keep it very easy drinking. This is 4.5%. And then just being like, again, this is summer. There's some fruit in here. There's some tartness. There's some salt. There's some residual sweetness. Again, no Thinkies, but no also if you want to go Thinkies on it, then you can Thinky, you know.
I love it. Grapefruit's a good one. All right, gentlemen. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Great nose. Super soft. Yeah. Everything's just soft. Oh man, that's great. That is everything you said about the grapefruit. That's not what one would expect when drinking a grapefruit beer. Mm-hmm. This is
you might expect something like super punchy and to hit you like with something very kind of tart and acidic and this is not that at all. Like you were saying, it's soft. Like it really is, and wow. And being a Gose, like the saltiness to it too is not not like you're drinking seawater, but like it's kind of just enough there to complement the fruit component.
Yeah, the salt level I'm pretty happy with. Like it's kind of pretty hard to nail that. I listened to a few podcasts by the Brewers Association. They came out with a book called Gose, and they had the three authors who did it. They had a Q&A at the conference last year, and basically the question, do this whole presentation, question time. The question that everybody was asking was like, how much salt do you put in these things? Like that's what people want to know, right? And man, did they keep their cards close to their chest. This is a very personal thing. It's really quite, it's personal, and it took people like quite a bit to figure out how much they wanted to add, right? And so it's not just like spill the beans kind of stuff on that. So like actually finding out what people do, like I just basically called all my friends. Or not all my friends. I actually did call Rob at all my friends, but I called like all my friends like that are in the brewing industry and sort of like figured out like what's going on, what people are doing, and then sort of took a stab at it and like quite liked where the sodium level is. Like I think it works well with the sweetness.
Very much so.
Too.
Yeah, it's one of the. I mean, I can't say. I guess it's only coming into the season right now, so I can't say I've had a bunch of Goses like very recently. But I kind of feel like this is one of the softest ones I've ever had in the best possible way. Like it's so. I feel like it's almost like, and kind of this speaks to a lot of the beers, but you guys have like a real. It's like this very unique approach to the beers where they are so soft and consistently seems to be the word I'm thinking of here that is like gateway style stuff where it's like it's very approachable for maybe new beer drinkers, but it's so appealing, I think, to maybe cats like us, like a bit more beer nerds, that it's like every time I see your beers, I was just at Wildcat the other night and had the stout out there. I know Darren, I'm in Hamilton, so I mean they they always have everything fresh in cans, and I've had some of the IPAs on tap there and stuff. So I always feel like it's equally appealing to people like us, whilst this wouldn't scare like a noob to think, oh, it's just sour beer. Like, it's so refined and it's wicked, man. It's such a cool approach. It's very unique.
Well, I appreciate that. Like it's a funny one too. Like I generally live in the production area and I don't come up to the tap room often when we're open, like in terms of like customer facing or whatever. But it is funny the few times that I am up here and somebody's like, oh, I don't like IPAs, but I like fruity things. And then if we do have an IPA that is like exceptionally fruity, I'll be like, well, just give this a shot. And like the perception that people have about beers, it immediately pivots them from what they might actually like, specifically with IPAs, there's an association with bitterness, or like if you think grapefruit, you're like, oh, that's going to be too tart. People can pivot really quick and sort of like asking people what they want and then trying to like give them the beer and like not really feed them too much information and see if they'll bite. That's my weird game that I like to play up here with the masses. And then they send me back down to the production area.
Like, get out of here.
They're saying like, oh, who left Nick out up here again?
Like,
Yeah,
God
yeah,
damn it.
no, totally.
I imagine from you guys as well, because I've taken my mother-in-law, like I drag her around to breweries, and she's come down. She loves the county as well, and like we've taken her there at least once, but I think twice. And I feel like she really enjoys it. She's not particularly much of a beer drinker, and I find that like I think because of the view, if people know, oh, it's the the beer place with the view, if they don't really know what's up, like you're gonna get a bunch of those types that are here for the view, and they didn't really consider the offerings. Though I'm pretty sure last time I was there, you have other things, obviously, like there's like wine and cider and stuff.
Yeah, we changed that. Again, time. I'm so bad with time, but I think it was in the fall. We changed our license, so we now can sell wine. We sell cider as well.
Awesome.
We do non-alcs, and then we've got tacos now. I think it's 7 days a week. So like we do have like just having food all the time and having non-alcs and having wine like red and white, or whether it's like pet nats or cider, like and trying to be, it just helps with the destination aspect of it. Like after year 1, year 2, somebody comes like, oh, I don't like beer. Do you have anything else? No. Okay, I won't give you money. Like, oh, that's weird. Maybe we should consider selling something to these people.
I respect it. It's not always that easy. Obviously, like you said, you had to get a, deal with the government. I think it's different license.
Oh, it's extremely annoying.
Yeah,
extremely annoying. I believe extremely expensive. Just hilarious bureaucracy. We already had gotten the first license, which was extremely difficult. But switching the license is just like getting a new license. It was the full Monty. Like,
gotcha. The whole process from scratch.
Super fun. Yeah.
Bureaucracy. Jesus Christ. Well, at least you got it done, which is super cool. So you are able to sort of serve because, okay, so probably a better question then. Of the new license last fall with the wine and stuff, like of the people that you're aware of, obviously you're not there a lot, but like, do you know like a general percentage of people who's like, oh, I don't like beer, and as a that you converted by like, you know what, hey, can I give you a couple samples real quick just to try a couple things and maybe find something that you like? Like, do you have you know what I mean?
Well, I know that our front of house staff is really good at that. Like they are great. They're super awesome at what they do, and like ask a lot of pointed questions to like get something that they want, that the customer would want, and get something in their hands, right? And like try to describe it using adjectives that hopefully will convey what we're trying to, right? And get somebody excited about drinking something that they might not normally. And quite frankly, like the Mosey, the German Pilsner, which last summer we had 3 Pilsners on tap. It was a little too hardcore for us. Like we only have 10 taps. We have barrel aged product. Usually have like a mainstay IPA, 1 or 2 rotational IPAs, a couple pale ales, like the yellow flowers, like some Goses. Like you're just so like you can't have 3 Pilsners. It doesn't work. So we decided just to have the German Pilsner this year, like always on, and that's a pretty good gateway, I think, for somebody who's just like, okay, I'm up here because it's a nice view. I just need I need Pabst. They're like, oh, this isn't quite like a light American lager. It has a little more flavor, but it finishes dry. It is sub 5% ABV. It's good bitterness, but like balanced by the maltiness. Like I think it'll fit the bill, and that's done quite a bit for us, I would say, in terms of converting people. Like I think it's in that instance, like you're trying to convert at like 5,000 different levels, right? If you're trying to convert somebody who's like really hasn't had craft beer, then having a craft Pilsner is like a nice entry into it, right? I think there's more flavor, but it's still like in the comfort zone. It's still like very, very, very approachable. Right. And we move more of that than anything for sure. Like that's just,
that's the big one.
That's the big one for sure. I mean, kind of tough to beat when you're coming up here and it's like 33 and you're in the sun, right? And like you want to keep it simple. You're just coming up from Sandbanks. Maybe you're not feeling the Gose. You're just like easy peasy tacos and like a German Pils made with local malt with copious amounts of Tannang, please. It's not how they usually order it.
No. I was about to say. I can imagine that the average person who maybe doesn't understand beer, who is dedicated to the view, would figure it out. Would be, or at the very least, be more open to suggestion, to be like, you know what do you drink? Oh, I like white wine. Okay, well, have you tried these IPAs? They are kind of fruity and stuff, like things like that appeal. That's one good thing I feel like. More the definite gateway beer are the Crispies for sure, for the the maybe domestic beer drinkers or macro drinkers as such. But for the people who don't really drink beer, I think like New England IPAs are one of the most underrated gateways, because it's just a fruity little creamy thing. Like,
absolutely,
how are you mad at them? And particularly the way you guys do it, they're just so soft and like very easy to drink. They're not too sweet, but they're kind of sweeter than a crispy, that they're not beer drinkers, and they probably don't. A lot of times people don't understand, that I've experienced anyway, they don't understand why it's beer. Like, they just have no clue. So I feel like that would be a real fun, and it probably looks pretty when you're holding it too, getting your photos with the sun.
That was certainly it. Like last year we had quite a few offerings. This year we'll certainly have the barrel aged product. Trying to think what else. Like, this is pink grapefruit, but it's not popping pink. Because pink grapefruit isn't always pink, right? So like you get the puree, and it's like, oh, not really pink, even though it's pink grapefruit. But yeah, this Gose was actually made. It was soured with lactobacillus, but the yeast itself is foggy, which is just what people are using in New England IPAs. Like, I fermented this out, so like a lot of the fruity character of this Gose, it is the grapefruit, but it is also just like I am using the same yeast that you'd make to make a hazy. So it's still finished out fairly dry, but yeah, just contributes more flavor. The next iteration, I think the one that I did this week, I used like an actual German ale strain. That's how usually they're done. We'll try it, see how, it smells slightly different. We'll see what it's like carved, and then know which way to go going forward. But yeah, that it does contribute obviously a ton of fruity esters to it as well.
That's awesome. That's really cool. One thing that we talked about just before, and kind of you alluded to it just now, is the way that you guys, like, I definitely want to talk about the branding and stuff, but the thing, are you a coffee guy at all?
Big time coffee guy.
Big time coffee guy. So, when you get you buy a third wave single origin bean or something, they'll usually have 3 descriptors, like, it'd be cola, clementine, fucking jasmine. You guys do a very similar thing on the cans, not always flavors, which is also very interesting. And I don't know if you want to speak to that, just say like the table beer here. What do we got? You got table beer, friendly, lively. Love that.
And with the Gose, we've got fruity, bubbly, pretty.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that, man? Just like, how did you guys come up with that? What was sort of the intention?
Yeah, I think like keeping it, all of it. It's funny to think about it in retrospect. Like the overarching concept of possibly everything here is like probably like well thought simplicity, or like balance. I don't know how to really describe it, but ultimately like well-crafted, approachable, a vibe that you buy into and hopefully think is associated with quality, but it's not like some exclusive club or anything, but like it hopefully has a perception of like premiumness or quality. I hope that would sort of ring true with somebody. It's like, you see this, you're like, this is going to be a unique product. It's approachable, it's quality, it's balanced, at a price point that we hope like works. And I think we trip out about everything to ensure that we're trying to like provide that as best we can. And so that pertains to the branding, the sense of place, the location of the brewery, the playlist that we have, the vibe, and the beers as well, like the liquid, and hopefully there's just a consistency of brand across all of that. And we work with a designer in Toronto, Justin Broadbent, who designed the the murals that are in our tap room. This guy here.
Very cool.
And and like everything that's here, he designed everything. He chose this pink hallway. He, everything that's here, he did. And then all the labels as well. Designed the signs on the drive up. There's a bunch of different signs. That was all him. So like, and trying to make that vibe with what we're doing with the liquid, and just also that you're having a good time here, and just associate all of it meshing together, and also seeing that on the LCBO shelves, and hopefully feeling that same thing when you see that beer, and association, knowing that you're getting like a quality product, that we're doing everything we possibly can to try and eke out as much flavor as we can at a price point that we're given by like basically what the market will bear, right? So like you're told this is a price that people are charging for an IPA, and reverse engineering it and being like, how can I ram as much flavor into this thing as I possibly can? Or maybe not just like ramming flavor necessarily, but like, what can I do? Like also keep it as much flavor, but that's balanced, that it's not overwhelming, or what have you, like that it's hopefully the whole package. And I think we're dealing with that. That's a long-winded answer, but like just the 3 words on the can, I think it can be something as simple as just like a descriptor. I think for Hatch, which is one of the LCBO SKUs we have, it just says pale ale. People still want to know what it is. Like IPA might have to be one of the words, but then like some association of like sense of place that might be, this one says pretty, like it's bubbly, effervescent, nice, light, summer, fun, like word salad. Like what are things? Pretty, fun, friends, and so just like bringing up to mind these things, and what also goes in there: grapefruit, refreshing, effervescent, cold, summer day. Spit out all these words, and just see like, does any of it stick? I don't know. Maybe not. Do people buy into it? I'm not sure that we know necessarily, but that was sort of the idea. Was in general, we are not really sticking to this anymore, but like maybe first word just is, what is this? Second word, descriptor-ish of it. Third word, fun word is like lightly what it is. Now we're getting a little loosey-goosey with it, but it can just be more trying to convey this the sense of branding in these 3 words. You have so little time, right? Like somebody's picking up a can, they don't know you from anybody. Convey something, go, right? Like convince somebody a vibe, like now, like that. And hopefully these 3 words are like, in some way, maybe they'll say what the beer is, maybe they'll convince you to buy in to what we're selling. I can't talk, like I'm talking to you guys for a few hours here. Whoever's picking up this can, I've got like 1 second, basically, probably to convince them, right? So they'll look at it, they'll be like, oh yeah, cool, like cool colors, pretty bubbly. I like summer. Yeah, okay. Or not, or they'll be like, pretty. I don't want pretty. So that's sort of the thinking with the words. And again, does it work? Does it stick? No idea. But we're giving it a go. It sort of worked.
I like it. It's kept everything unique, and it feels like, just like as we're as you're talking about this, is looking at the cans, I just feel like it's I guess just become a part of the brand. Like you notice it, but you don't notice it. Maybe after a while, like you see them. I don't know. Maybe for like, I feel like I know. Like I guess maybe it's harder to. I don't remember discovering the brand. I remember people telling me about you guys, but I went there anyway. I'm like, well, I'm here. I think every time I went, I came away with damn near a case as well, like to go, because you have such a great experience there. And the branding inside, the things you just showed us, it's just so like cohesive. You have these big, 15 feet windows just staring out over everything. You walk outside and it's this whole like experience that kind of just plays in. But then if you're seeing it for the first time, say on an LCBO shelf, you take a little bit more time to look at it, because most beers don't look like this. Like this is sort of a little abstract, perhaps, like strange, for lack, not in a bad way at all, but just like interesting drawings. Like, what's going on here? What is this all about?
All of it too, like also the colors, right? Like,
yeah,
the bright with our LCBO SKUs. We've got like a bright orange, like a light baby blue, and then a popping lime green. You know, like those are pretty intense colors on the shelf. Like they all sort of are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
these colors, you know.
And with label artwork that is distinct on an LCBO shelf, I would say. Like it's not typical artwork that you would see there. It's something that would be eye-catching, maybe enough to at least get someone to look at it and say like, oh, what's all this about? And then like, oh, maybe I'll catch the maybe I'll catch the descriptions and say like, okay, maybe this is something I want to try.
Sure. Yeah. And again, you've got very little time. Like think about myself, like going in anywhere, you're like, oh, 200 beers. Okay. So what am I doing here? Right. And like, if we could just be like, catch it, pick it up, see 3 words, maybe that's the difference. Right. So, I mean, branding is so, and that's a very different part of our business. Right. And like, I mean, you guys talk to lots of people constantly who are pivoting and trying to change and access different parts of the market. But like LCBOs become more and more important, I think, to a lot of my friends I'm talking to anyways, like a bigger percentage of the pie. You got to diversify like your sales channels, and LCBO is like fairly undeniably part of that. And so that has to control which SKU, which brand you want to go in there. What do you think you can get away with in terms of quality hot product, if that's the route you're going to take, and have some shelf stability, and also offer something that's going to be unique and catch people's eye, and the branding and the words. It's just like the whole way you have to approach it is quite different from somebody who's driven up this hill to the middle of nowhere. You've already won them over. If they're here, they already know the deal, right? It's not like, oh, I don't want any of those.
Right.
Like, well, they're already here, right? So LCBO is like a real different beast where you're competing against, I don't even know what the kids are drinking these days, but like, just like all sorts of mixed cocktails and like Clamato, whatever.
Seltzers.
Yeah.
So.
And you've also got even more in the LCBO, that question of price point, like you were talking about. It seems to matter way more in the LCBO than it does just coming out the front door. Like in some of the conversations we've had before, that certain products, and it differs if it's an IPA or a lager, but like it's one of those things of as soon as it goes above $4 a can, then like the numbers just plummet on kind of how quickly they move. It really matters more there. It's a completely different beast.
It's a huge, huge game. It's really, really, really intense. But we've decided this year to sort of really go for it with the LCBO, and whatever that entails. It entails a lot. Like it entails a lot of logistics. Like we are in the middle of nowhere, and so ensuring like that your logistics are tight, and that beer is going to get to the LCBO affordably, quickly, and well, shipped properly, stored well on the way to hundreds of LCBOs. It's like it's totally insane, but like that, it can happen. It's just like, it's a lot of work. The logistics aspect of it. I mean, you could talk about that for hours, honestly, and probably everybody would just click out and go do something else and eat a sandwich. But there's a lot to say about it. But it's happening to more breweries constantly. Like I think a lot of people are definitely getting into the game and trying to because once you're in, I mean, like it's the government and they pay you on time and it's easy. And like, there's certain aspects of it that are great. And there's just hundreds of these stores, right? So like to say that you don't want in, it's a huge market. So we've decided to sort of take advantage of that. And I think it's been good. It's just like, it's a lot of work and like we were discussing, like a lot of awareness of what works in the LCBO, or specifically like what works here, but wouldn't work in the LCBO. There's a lot of, like we're not cranking like $15 bottles of barrel aged wine beers at the LCBO. It doesn't work so well.
I love it. I've definitely seen a lot more. You were saying like a lot of your friends are you're seeing them find the LCBO more important, and so Nate and I are talking to people who are definitely moving into it. And just observationally, I'm seeing a lot of breweries that typically hadn't focused on LCBO have seemed to be really moving into it strongly, like aggressively, because for all the reasons you said. So it's probably one of the only ways this thing's going to grow. Yeah,
like if you even just look back like 5-6 years ago, if you had told any of us that like that Bellwoods would be in the LCBO, we probably would have laughed our asses off. and look how many brands they've got in now.
Yeah, them Blood Brothers too, like you were saying, like you guys in there, and there's certain Town are aggressive in there too. That this
Town, Burdock,
Burdock's
got a bunch of SKUs, right?
Yeah, they so do. There's a bunch of breweries that were just more like destinations, and that were harder to get. You had to have either had to order online or visit directly pre-COVID, meaning pre-indie bottle shops. And now it's, I think it's a great thing. Because it's all the brands that got a lot of us into beer and sort of or were important to a lot of us in our journeys and stuff. And then now you're able to sort of access it easily, and then they can now, in their newer iteration of what they are, convince a whole bunch of new drinkers to get into beer. It's it's a cool thing for sure. On that note, shall we crack the nextie?
Yeah, you read my mind.
What are you thinking?
Probably the German Pilsner, Mosey, I would say. I think that's, if we're playing the ABV game, I think that comes in at 4.8.
Good memory.
We're climbing the ladder.
Love it. Slowly but surely. I like this. This is like an interesting order, because this is not what I would have thought it to be. And it reminds me of like Third Moon when they were doing things in a completely different way. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
I kind of much prefer, like, I like this, like, Nick guiding us through this in a way that we wouldn't have typically picked.
Yeah, I like that too. I like our typical kind of like pre-assumed order being challenged a little bit.
Definitely. It's like a fun, a more fun drinking sort of experience. And this is perfect. I'm a big fan of this beer. This is the first one we've had tonight that I have had a few times before. What are the other two? When you said you had 3 lagers on at the brewery, whenever it was, like last summer or recently, what were the 3? So I just haven't.
We had Easy, which was like a lower ABV. Actually, we might have even had 4 on for a bit. We did a collab with Burdock called Super Easy, which was a decocted 3.5%. And then we had Woohoo, which is our Czech pills, which is that's the most kettle hop editions, because that's done with saws, and we get it up to 40 BUs with like the lowest alpha saws ever. So it's just gratuitous money wasting, but it's like very delicious. So.
Is that the episode name? Gratuitous money wasting?
You read my mind. I was thinking that.
We'll add it to the list. You've dropped a few gems tonight, Nick. That are potentials. Yes, this is a slapper. So once again, this is the German pills. You said Tettnang when you were saying when people come in and order the German pills with Tettnang. I remember when they said that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love Tettnang. Like, I just think. Cheers,
boys.
Cheers.
Wicked nose. All I can smell is Tettnang.
Yeah, and
I'm joking. I can't at all, but I love it. Oh, that's delicious. That's spectacular. I love this beer. Sorry, keep going, brother. I cut you off.
Like, this is a really, I think it's a great showcase for the malt again. Like, this finish is dry. Intentionally, it's like quite a dry beer at 1.6 Plato, like really, really dry. But I think there's a perception of sweetness to it. Like I feel it on my lips. I like taste the sweetness, which I love, but it's crushable. It's because it finishes so dry to hit 4.8%. It's only like 10.5 Plato, I think, beginning. So it is just like a light, easy drinking beer. But yeah, again, somehow retains this perception of sweetness with very little sugar in it. And I attribute that to the malt, like just that it's able to actually do that. Again, just is like a testament to what Devon's able to do with it.
I love that, man. This is just like a real nice, like just describing it. It's 4.8. It's still got a lot of like, that's like a really great zone. 4.5 to 5.5 kind of for a crispy is perfect. Like beautiful malt profile on this one. I feel like maybe my palate's got a little still scrubbed the even though the last one was also very soft. The maybe residual sweetness from the grapefruit and stuff, but this is very smooth. It's got a nice little bitterness, grassy bitterness. I imagine that's all the tatnang there, delivering a bit of that.
Tatnang. Yeah.
And it's got.
It is also, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, like, all the pilsners that we do, they've got a lot of bitterness to them. Like there's a lot of bitterness. I'm always a little worried about how much bitterness there is in them. Like whether I like bitter pilsners. Like now I work on the top of a hill in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nobody. And I did all my experiments in the pandemic where I saw no one and had no feedback. So I always worry like how bitter can you kind of get away with and sort of keep it still like very, hopefully again, perception of balance, accessible, and all this kind of stuff. And I think we get away with it with the malt. Like this is like 35 BUs for a German Pilsner. This is like packing some real bitter punch to it, but I don't think you really necessarily feel like it's that, just because again, this perception of sweetness that exists. Like I think just Joe Random would have it and not think that this is too bitter. I hope, that's what it.
I don't think so at all.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it maybe has like a bit of there's a bit of a lingering bitterness, but it certainly doesn't read excessively bitter on the sip or even while it's in your mouth. Like I get it more lingering on the back end, but it doesn't read excessively bitter to me.
Yeah, and again, this is basically like summer pills, right? So if it is that lingering bitterness and you're just like, what that lingering bitterness makes me want to do? Have another sip. I think that's what I'll do. And
that sure does.
I think, like it just kind of keeps the train going. Like if you have another sip, you'll have a little bit of that sweetness that goes well with the bitterness. Oh wait, there's that bitterness again.
Yep.
What goes well with that? Oh yeah, another sip.
And what it also has me wanting right now is like I'm wishing I had like a bowl of chips or pretzels beside me. Like it feels like that would go perfect with this right now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
or tacos. Got to come.
Tacos. Yeah. Nothing beats tacos. It's a goat. Yeah, man. This is killer. I really feel like would you say, like I feel like if I think of Slake, I think of Crispies and IPAs. Is that something like, say, since we're talking about Crispies, do you feel like that's something that you guys are either known for or super like want to be known for something like this?
It's kind of funny. Like we really go in and out of phases. Like I know you guys like IPAs, so like we were cranking IPAs in the fall.
Right.
And like I don't know how like nerdy people have gotten about like yeast strains and stuff, but
let's go. We did a podcast with the yeast guy. So yeah, you're good, man.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like for hazies, like people in Ontario more or less are using either Foggy from Escarpment, the Juice from Imperial, or Cosmic from Omega. Those are like the three that people are, I mean, you could use all sorts of stuff, but that I would argue that probably 95% of, probably more, 98% of hazy beers are being made with one of those three strains. And So we really went all in, just like slamming IPAs like all fall. And an interesting conundrum for us is now we have this IPA, which is a SKU at the LCBO, which we have all the time. And we were just doing like one-offs all the time and experimenting constantly. And now it's like, oh, we have, and you know, the IPA that I did send you guys was Slow. That's a SKU that we just got into LCBO like last month.
Nice.
So that it's really pivoted our IPA model a bit, because we need to crank volume of this. And we're not huge, like by any means, you know, like at all. But we're pretty much at full capacity right now. And we've got to be making Slow for the LCBO. And yet we were cranking a new IPA. I don't know. I don't remember, but every week or two for a while there. So just the model recently for us is like, oh, okay, well, what does this mean? Like for one-offs in the IPA, and what does it mean for us releasing to people? So I sent this because I'll talk more about it, but I think it's interesting to have sent this Slow as opposed to like we have Misty, which is our one-off IPA right now, that I could have sent, and it is like a Nelson Citra bomb that is like way more like one-off, high residual sweetness, high chloride to sulfate ratio, like all the things. But I think this is interesting just for like something different for you guys. Like this is an IPA that I was kind of touching on it earlier, is like constructed to be maximum IPA value for a price point in the LCB.
Yeah.
So, and shelf stability, and just given like certain parameters. Whereas in the tank right now, we have a collab with Trust Beer Bar in St. Catharines that we're doing.
Oh yeah, I know that place.
In, I don't know, like 2 weeks or something. Sick. And that is like a freestyle Nelson with like New Zealand Hopkey freestyle, New Zealand Cascade. Like it's just like
expensive.
It's downstairs. It is. I'm carving it tonight. That's the beer I'm talking about, that I'm going to go and just sort of like dial up the carb. It is expensive, and it's like cocaine. Like it's just like pure, like it's everything, you know, like you drink it and you're like, oh yeah, that's how you do it. Like that's, so like,
that's what the kids want.
That's what the kid, and then you do it, and we're going to have 45 30s of it, like kegs to go out. And then we do the canning run, and it goes bye-bye, you know? And, so like, that's a thing, but then you balance that with your LCBO SKUs and then like your delicate stuff. So I actually have no idea what we're really known for, again, because I have 2 kids and I, spend most of my time by myself in a production area in the middle of nowhere.
Nobody around.
With nobody around except a sounding board, like, you know, my friends who are also here, who we just say the same thing over and over to each other constantly. So yeah, I don't know, but those are basically, we have in the past couple of years done quite a few IPAs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the general population would probably know us from our pale ales, because that's what's in the LCBO.
Gotcha.
You know, and we're selling a lot of lager to accounts in Ottawa, Kingston, Toronto. So then people might know us for that, or whether it's boutique barrel-aged wineskin product, or like we were using a lot of Ontario fruit and putting that on saisons and selling bottles of that, or sours, like, or it can just be like we've had Yellow Flowers be the beer in some hotels in like the little mini fridge, right? Somebody might be, little table beers. Like they might know us
that's dope.
For that. So, you know, I honestly don't know, but the amount of effort, or it's not effort, the amount of SKUs or IPAs that we're making going into high season, it's not as much as we were doing in the fall, just because, again, we have limited capacity. And quite frankly, like one turn on our kit, all the fermenters are doubles. So I brew twice to fill one fermenter. And they're all doubles by design so that I can brew more beer, but I would have to be brewing like one double of IPA. It would be, 3,600 liters. So that's like 7,000 cans. Do you want to make 7,000 cans of a one-off IPA and have those coming out very frequently? Can you get rid of it fast enough? So basically what we do is we need to have the tank, like right now in high season, we need to be doing a single of IPA, which is tough to do when we need them to be doubles.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like we need the volume. Mm-hmm. So making one-off IPAs is difficult.
I get it.
Schedule that in, because we just need tank turns. Like it's just, we need to make as much beer as we possibly can right now. I won't until you get more tanks or something. So again, we're still doing it, but it's only about once a month, I would say right now.
Okay.
And that might pivot again in the fall. As things sort of like chill out a little bit, we'll probably be able to do it more frequently. But and where we're located, a lot of people from Quebec come here. A lot of people from Quebec.
Yes.
And I have an Airbnb here and in my backyard, and it's always a couple that come. They're always about 34 to 38. They either have one kid that's 6 months old, or like a 6-month-old and like a 3-year-old, and they're from just off the island in Montreal. That's what happens. That's like 80% of the people that stay there. And then they want to come here and have IPAs. So that's sort of why I was going. Like, we need to have these one-off IPAs. Like, not only are they like to our palate, like, when it's in the bright and you can do tank pours and you're just like, yep, this is pretty nice having this kicking around. Like, we want it, but also there's like a pretty serious demand for just having just some smash of delicious, whether it's freestyle hops or just like some chaos of nectaron and, just deliciousness. Rightfully so. They're delicious beers, right? So those are amazing hops and people want them. So we want to also do that. And it is hard to, for anybody to decide, like, we've got 10 taps, like what 10 styles do you want to do, or what 10 beers do you want to choose for that? It's very, very difficult, right? And everybody's got a different idea. And for us, I think it's just diversity of flavors for across the board. Whereas some people might choose, like Troy, he's cranking just the most delicious IPAs or Vivo, and like they're doing that, or other people focusing on, like BIM focusing on pretty much all lagers, and for us, it's just sort of across a little bit of everything. If we can dabble and offer that to people, because quite frankly, the people that are coming here, they're coming to the county. They're not necessarily coming specifically for us. They're not necessarily coming because we're a brewery. They're coming to the county. They're like, Sandbanks is in the county. Wineries are in the county. Food is a big deal here.
Yeah. Yep.
I hear there's this place that's got a big view or a good view, and so they come here and we want to offer them like everything that we possibly can. Right. So that sort of dictates a lot of the styles that we're doing.
I like that.
It's pretty dope to have that in your wheelhouse in a way that still feels like something that you can genuinely make and still kind of be passionate about, because it's one of those things that those styles to some folks who it's not part of their core offering, it ends up being put out as something that they feel like they just kind of have to do, and it doesn't really hit as much. But this feels like something that is still very much in your wheelhouse. It might be a little bit outside of like of what the core vibe is, but it still somehow works if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think certainly, and that was sort of, I think, what the reason we didn't sort of make it part of our core-ish lineup for a while was it felt a little, I mean, it's just a higher ABV product, right? Like sort of settled at 6.5 being where we want most of our IPAs to land. And that's just different from what we're doing. So that was difficult to sort of like convince ourselves that it made sense with the lineup. But there's no denying that they're absolutely delicious and everybody wants them.
Yeah.
And, you know, whenever you open these bags, like in Super Sunset, which is our pale ale, like we dry hopped that a couple days ago, and we've got like a really good lot of Galaxy, and you bust open those bags and there's like good Galaxy. Whew, it's tough to beat good Galaxy, you know, like when you just smell it and you're like, what, you don't want to make this? Like, of course not. Like, of course not. Like, it's too good. And it's these freestyle, like some of this freestyle stuff, it's just
crazy.
like, it's totally nuts.
What's your favorite hop right now? Do you have a favorite hop?
Yep. I do have a favorite hop. Freestyle New Zealand Cascade.
It is. That's disgusting. That shit. That is phenomenal stuff.
It is. It's like it can pop. I don't find this year as so much as last year. Like Welch's grape juice. Like just to smell it. Like when you open the bag, it's like just slams you. So for the trust, we got New Zealand Cascade Hop Keef, and then mid to late harvest New Zealand or Nelson Sauvin Freestyle, and like I'm pretty excited for that one.
That's bananas.
The New Zealand Cascade to me is just nuts. And I've been told, like, I don't know this for sure. Somebody had mentioned that it is actually just Cascade that is grown in New Zealand. I can't vouch for that, but that's what I've been told. And if that's the case, I mean, it's not Cascade. Like it is not.
Nothing like it.
No. Like
Cascade.
Like New Zealand Cascade versus American Cascade versus North American Cascade is not the same thing at all. So like if that is true, then there must be just something absolutely bananas in the terroir there.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but it is. Yeah, like I would say, it's crack cocaine. It's fentanyl. It's just like it's so good.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's nuts.
Fentanyl in New Zealand.
Yeah. But on it, like, I don't know, favorite hop, like pretty tough, like Tettnang's pretty good, you know, like, and like,
I guess even now, it probably fluctuates, I imagine.
Yeah. Like even what I'm noticing a lot this year that's kind of blowing my mind is even like Simcoe lots. Like we've had the variety of Simcoe, it's all good, but they're basically like different hops. Like Simcoe, as far as I've known it, has always been pretty Simcoe-y, like how I would describe what Simcoe is. And I've had some lots that are just juice, like not like nothing other than just like ripe berry, like so much so that you're like, this in the hatch that we sell in the LCBO, that's Simcoe Centennial. So I feel like I've gotten to know Simcoe pretty well. And we've had some lots that are great, but they don't work in that brand because it's like, well, it doesn't make the beer that we're convincing people is a flavor.
Gotcha.
It does not taste like that. So we're like using and I've reordered some of that specific lot to use in other beers because I really like it, but it's like a specific lot of Simcoe, which is weird. Like I've never had such variance in Simcoe. It's usually fairly consistent. But the quality is like extremely high across all Simcoe and has been for the past few years. But it's quite varied, which is interesting. I haven't gotten to play so dramatically with a similar hop and use them in different beers and have them taste so dramatically different.
Interesting.
So that's been kind of a thing. We're using, a lot of Nelson all the time. That hasn't changed. Like we've used a lot of Nelson for a lot of stuff. So still doing that. So it's not really all that exciting, but like the New Zealand Cascade for us whenever, I'm always excited to throw that into something because it pops different. It's fairly unique. People are using it, but they're not going crazy with it. I think it was Bebo who got me on it. It was Bebo or Troy, like one of those guys.
Wouldn't be
like,
surprised.
Like it's just so good. And then when we open the bag here, just being like, yep, okay, yep, that's
the one.
Stuff. We will use it again. Great.
Again. Have you tried Peacherine?
We have some on contract with Freestyle this year. We tried getting Peacherine last year, and I can't remember who was it, like Treehouse or somebody bought up all the Peacherine from Freestyle. So if you didn't contract it early, Treehouse bought all Freestyle Peacherine.
Damn.
They bought it all. So like it just wasn't around. So I mean, we are getting it. Like probably now I could get it, or like within the next month. But I contracted that, like 18 months ago, probably to get this Freestyle Peacherine. Yeah.
That's nuts.
So we will have, so like this fall we'll be doing like Freestyle Peacherine, which will be pretty dope.
The best of the best.
That's awesome. I know you guys know our mate Guillaume from the Catch.
He was here. We did a collab.
Yeah,
sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like he's the one who really like turned us on to Peacherine and how fucking dope it is. I think he must have been one of those ones who was lucky to get a contract before before Treehouse bought him up. He's ended up making quite a few with.
I remember him. We talked about exactly this. He did lock some in beforehand for sure.
Yeah,
smart. Yeah. It's like I don't think I've had a hop in a while. Like Nate and I, funnily enough, we've got similar palates. We used to love Idaho 7, which is still great, but Peacherine, I've just never had a hop like there's like all the ones you're talking about. Everything's phenomenal. There's so many incredible hops, Rawaka, Motek, and all these different stuff, and mind blowing. But Peacherine is on another level. Like I haven't seen a hop in a while that is like Nate, I imagine you were probably about to say Guillaume called it the cheat code hop. Like you can't make a shit beer with Peacherine. Yeah. So if you guys rocking that, let's go, bro. I love that.
And quite frankly, like I find Rawaka to be similar. Like Rawaka, the problem with Rawaka is that it's very difficult to grow, like extremely difficult to grow. So the price of Rawaka, it's about as expensive as you can get with a hop because hop growers don't want to grow it because it's super annoying. And then they're like, well, I mean, it's $27 a pound, and you're like, okay, I'll pay it. And they're like, well, okay, fine, I'll grow it.
For context, what would be a comparable? Excuse me, comparable price.
So what am I saying? Rawaka. So
you said Rawaka 27 a pound.
Yeah, I think that's real. So like, let's say freestyle Rawaka is 27. I would say like freestyle Nelson's probably 22.
Okay. Nelson used to be the priciest.
Oh yeah, Nelson's come down a lot. YCH, like for like a standard Citra or like contracted selected Citra, like $17.50, I would say, or like somewhere in that ball, plus or minus $1 depending on your quantity. Similar for Simcoe. So like American Pacific Northwest, good hop, Amarillo, just like standard proprietary hop is somewhere between $17 and $18 a pound. Rawaka being 27. Wow.
That's great context. Thank you.
Real. Yeah,
I understand. I mean, that doesn't sound like much, maybe, but when you're getting thousands of pounds, that adds up quick.
Oh yeah, it adds up. Like I'm trying to think. Like if we're doing a single batch of a beer and we're filling the tank only halfway, and you're dry hopping at, like, if you're making a 6.5% IPA, dry hopping at rates that are like pretty standard, which would be somewhere between 15 to 18 grams a liter, I would say, for a single IPA. For 20 hex, you're talking about, under 40 kilos, 80 pounds at whatever I said, 80 pounds times $20. So, $1,600 for a single, or $3,200 just for a dry hop, right? Not including like your whirlpool.
2,160 for $27 a pound. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's for a single. that like would vanish pretty quick, and that doesn't include your whirlpool hops. It doesn't count any bittering hops if you're doing that. So like,
do you know what? That's so cool that you brought that up. That's the stuff that we love to show here. That like, if people ever complain about price of craft beer, I'm like, y'all don't understand the price of ingredients. And I think according to Troy, he was telling us that they just eat the price most of the time, eat the cost. And beer, like you were talking also earlier about the market sort of being able to only sort of sustain a certain amount, that, you know, people don't really think of those numbers. Or like, if you add up all of those different things, like you're saying, this is just one dry hop. What if it's double dry hop? What if it's triple dry hop? Then there's whirlpool hops. Then there could be something else. Like you're getting specialty grain from barn owl, which is definitely going to be more expensive than if you just got a standard run of the mill thing from a larger company, so on and so forth. So you're getting all of these like higher quality specialty ingredient. You're trucking in water, for fuck's sake. Like, you know, so on and so, and people just, I feel like that's really cool context just to sort of talk about. I'm glad you brought that up. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of it is you have to look at every single penny. Like, I didn't actually realize, you know, you hear people saying like count the pennies or whatever, but like, it's so real. You really are looking at pennies. I was looking at the price of the lids on cans today, and buying them in bulk, and I was looking at the difference in tenths of cents.
Wow.
You know, so because if you know, on one run you do 10,000 cans, and we do like one of those a week, right? So it comes up pretty fast. Like all those little margins, you're like, oh, if we like change can lid suppliers over the course of the year, you know, and you save half a cent per lid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's massive, right? Like, it's huge. Could mean like an extra pump or something at the end of the year.
Jeez,
Anyways, gotta always be evaluating that stuff, and as it pertains to hops, right? And like, that can certainly influence which hops you're going to use. They change so dramatically in price. The hop market right now is really pretty cowboy right now. It's like a lot of things are changing. Things are in flux, and there's deals to be had, and like trying to make some choices to be able to maybe offer a better product, because the market, maybe Rowak isn't $27 anymore. Maybe it's 23, and maybe I can dry hop a little more than I normally would, and keep it at the same price point that I was charging you last week, and you're getting more flavor punched into that pint. So evaluating that stuff constantly is something that, when I talk to, you know, my buddies doing this in Ontario, like, everybody's reevaluating all this stuff always, like constantly.
Sounds like you have no choice.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
actually makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference, not only from like your bottom line and being like a business that is a business, and by definition, right? Like, trying to sustain, like, you know, growth and have employees, and also like make refinements which are going to like streamline everything and find efficiencies and make a better product, right? Those are all the goals like that you're trying to do, and you can do that right now through looking at the hop market. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening that haven't happened for a long time. Things are changing. There's a lot more opportunity, even in peacherine, for example. Like I was saying, we tried to get peacherine 18 months ago, couldn't get it, and then funny enough, suddenly peacherine went on spot with Freestyle. Freestyle, like, just a few months ago, was like, oh, we actually do have peacherine. Because somebody was long on peacherine. Like, somebody had contracted a bunch, and who knows what happened. Possibly the brewery went under, I don't know, or they arranged with Freestyle, oh, we can't fulfill that amount of our contract. So, and Freestyle was like, oh, okay, fine, like, we'll let you off the hook with 2,000 kilos of it. And suddenly they put it on the spot market, so that, like, if you're aware of these things, you can be like, oh, there's peacherine, like, do we have a slot in production? Oh, we can actually make this peacherine beer that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And then Like you see a slot and then you're like, oh man, they have a peacherine beer. But like the only way you would know that is if you happen to peruse the Freestyle Spot
on
website
that day.
on that day and see it, you know? So like those are like the crazy, it's very dynamic. And you can either be like geeking out and tripping out like that or not.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are tripping out about it.
I have heard something when as you were saying this, I was like, Nate, maybe someone told us recently that it's either the hops, like you mentioned as well, Nick, that the price of, say, Nelson went down. So I think the prices of a bunch of hops have gone down. Maybe some breweries are going out of business or making less than they used to, and therefore can't fulfill their contracts, and they're either selling the hops to their mates or are going direct to the supplier, and they're doing those little spot sales. That feels really familiar. So I mean, like, I guess that's one upside, as opposed to, because there used to be the scarcity, so you had to if I don't contract in 2 years,
it's a fine line, right? So like Nelson commands a huge price point. Quality was a little spotty for a few years. Like there was really good Nelson, there was also some pretty bad Nelson, and this kind of happens when there's new brands, right? Like people are planting, not every lot's the same, but then a lot of people planted Nelson, right? And so it's not just that maybe demand has gone down, or maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, I'm not totally sure, but certainly the acreage of Nelson has dramatically increased, right? So with increased acreage, just like anything, if 500% more people planted Gala apple trees, Gala apples would be a lot cheaper, right? And it's just the same as like anything, any commodity, oil, right? Like you start drilling a bunch more oil, the price of oil would go down. Same with Nelson. There's just like way more acreage of Nelson. Price, they still are like really trying to demand a premium for it, and they are. It's still like an expensive hop, but it can't be too expensive, because like then Buddy over here is just going to be like, well, why don't you just buy my $20 Nelson and it's just as good, right? Not necessarily, but if it is just as good, it's a tough case to buy Bob's Nelson over here. It's $24 as opposed to Tim's over here, right? So there is that as well. So there's a lot of factors at play. I don't really understand a lot of it, and it all just seems random. Sometimes you're like, what's going on here? Like, I don't know why, but if you're like attuned to the weird trends in hop markets, there are like opportunities which certainly didn't exist in previous years. That's what I find. So we're trying to be more nimble. It's hard with hops. Everybody's contracted. Like sometimes you're selecting, everybody's got their own way that they've approached securing hops. And some people, for us, we're just like, we make a lot of varieties of different beers. We're just sort of like trying to pay attention to what's available, and, so that if there is a peacherine thing and suddenly you see it on spot, you can jump on it,
right.
And not have the inventory on hand and be like, oh, well, I have nectar on. We have like 400 kilos of nectar on. The next 8 one-offs are going to be nectar on, or something like that. You don't want to be making beers because you have to. You want to be able to be flexible and be like, you know what? I did see that peacherine. I do want to make a peacherine beer. I want to be able to do that and have the cash flow to pivot that way, as opposed to have your locked in inventory on site.
Right. That makes complete sense. I'm not going to lie. All this hop talk, we need to crack some hops.
Yeah, we do.
Honestly.
Should we take a bathroom break before we do that?
Oh, that's not a bad idea. I'm down for a bathroom break.
Sure. Why don't we do that?
All right. We'll be back in a second. Alrighty.
And we're back.
Hop time.
Boom.
So, Nick, what are we saying?
Yeah. So this is Hatch. Hatch was our first LCBO SKU. And so this is coming in at 5.2%. Citra Simcoe. Again, a pretty good amount of residual sweetness in this still, but equally balanced with some bitterness. Something that's common, obviously, with a lot of hoppier beers is reducing the temperature of the whirlpool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's done here. Whereas some of like really hazy IPAs, you might get the temperature even down to like 70 degrees Celsius. That's not done here. We only reduce it to 90. So you're still getting some bitterness. And I think the game we're always playing is like, how much bitterness do you want to have to balance the residual sweetness that's in this one?
Right.
And so like this was sort of our first foray into the LCBO, and we wanted a beer that this is a hazy pale ale that, again, I keep saying it, but it's like kind of like a no thinky, yummy, me likey, but I'm not thinking too much. But also like, bam, like it was a bit of a move for us to be like, we're putting this in, and this is going to be made with like a foggy New England yeast, and it's going to have Centennial in it. Like that's not a banger hop necessarily, but I don't know. I really like it. I think it pops pretty nicely and sort of differentiates itself a little bit. And again, the other hop, it's 2 parts Simcoe, 1 part Centennial in the dry hop. So it's still got like a good Simcoe nose to it. But I think the Centennial, even though it's only a third, it's still Centennial-y. Like it's still popping Centennial. So cheers.
Hell yeah. Gentlemen.
Cheers.
Put that in you. Cheers.
Still like nice little citrus sweetness.
Yes.
A little bit of bitterness in there.
Yeah.
A little touch in the back end.
I love Centennial. Like I've kind of gotten a renewed appreciation for like the classic American IPA lately, and and the classic APA sort of thing, and and this definitely has a bit of that vibe about it with with kind of that more pronounced bitterness and like that kind of more like citrus pithy vibe to it. That while still being a like a hazy New Englandish like style pale ale, it does have that APA vibe about it, I find.
Sure. And quite frankly, like when you're looking at beer lists, right? Like, and you're looking at trying to find a place in the market for yourself, right? Like we found, like, I could write on a piece of paper. I don't want to go get a piece of paper, but I'd be like, name a pale ale in Ontario that you would like to see at a bar? I don't even know. Like, I know what it is, but like, what is it? What do you associate with a pale ale? The most prominent pale ale in Ontario that's made. What do you think? What comes to mind?
Sawdust City Golden Beach.
Okay.
I was going to say Great Lakes. Canuck would be the one that came to mind. As far
love it. Yeah.
Not when you say prominent, most like common.
I would say like New England. If I said New England.
Oh, okay.
You could do Third Moon Rise. Potential. Okay. No, hang on, not Rise.
Wow, this is not working.
Yeah.
This isn't at all like I anticipated.
Pale ale. Wait. Give me a sec.
Well, see, I think I'm standing by my answer with Golden Beach.
Yeah. No, good. So it's a little different from where I was going with my story, but I was thinking Jutsu. Like Jutsu.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Like in that category, you go to whatever, like a beer town, or you go to a place, right? And you're like, pale ale, please. Like do you have like a New England style, like pithy, kind of citrusy pale ale? Like Jutsu is the one that I kind of comes to mind for me. And there are certainly others, but it's an interesting market, the pale ale in Ontario, and
particularly the New England pale ale. Yeah, and the New England pale ale is a different thing in Quebec. It is radically different than what the New England pale ale is in Ontario. The pale ale in Quebec is like dry hopped almost at the same rates, if not the same rates as IPAs. And instead of this like 5.2 nonsense, it's more like 5.7 generally. It's like a higher ABV,
way more hop than in Ontario. And just as a sidebar, but like in Ontario, we sort of crafted this beer thinking like, okay, there's a market here. The pale ale market's just sort of a little diverse. Like, quite frankly, like the pale ales that you guys mentioned, those are pretty radically different pale ales. The one that Sawdust make and that Brewer Nick, right? Like those are pale ales. Like that's pretty crazy, you know, like that those are the same style somehow. Like I said pale ale and you guys said those beers. Yeah. So like it's a divergent style with opportunity for in the market is sort of where we came across with this beer, and again sort of crafted a beer that we thought would be like an approachable, like balanced, yummy beer in a category that's lacking some definition compared to like German Pilsner, New England IPA. You're like, I know exactly what I'm getting when I say this. Like there's very little wiggle room. And pale ale is sort of a catch-all for a bunch of different stuff. So that's where this beer came from. And having a little nod to some of those flavors that are from yesteryear, but made in the style. Quite frankly, like the IPA that I was going to send you, Craig, you were mentioning like you like these like older style hops. Like we've got a beer called Greenbush that we released, or we made it a few times, but
I know that
we
one.
made it recently, and it's like it's a hazy beer, but it's Centennial Cascade Chinook, and it pops. Like I was like, I was gonna set it. I'm like, this is like, I don't know if this is too niche. I love it. Like I just love it, but it tastes like there's like the Chinook is popping, you know, and it's like.
So it's like, it looks like a New England, but tastes like a Westie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it in 2021. It looks like when I was in PC for a while, like 10 days. So I remember I went a bunch and just was drinking just PC beer for the whole time. Yeah. I like that though. I feel like that's like, I see what you're saying, that you've kind of done that, but this is like the Simcoe and then the Centennial is kind of like a best of both worlds. If you can make it work, there's a couple of examples I've had over the time where like it's been a New England base and then you have one of these sort of, you know, more classic C hops have been put in there and it doesn't always mesh perfectly. But this is like, it marries the both worlds super well. I feel like you definitely brought this one home with this one, man. And it's like, maybe it's like the Simcoe because it's kind of like that sort of dank citrus, I guess. And that goes beautifully with that kind of like all of those I mean, what would you guys say the Centennial brings specifically? I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking like obviously a little bit of pine, probably still more some dank, like some orangey type of stuff as well. But
yeah, I find that Centennial can really bring some depth of citrus, and I don't mean just specifically like you're tasting like orange and lemon kind of thing, but it's more like you definitely get the pithy bitterness and kind of like the candied orange thing going on, like where you get that kind of contrast of of sweetness and bitterness, that kind of marmalade like flavors to it.
There we go.
And
getting all of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and those two just work so well together in this.
They work so amazing, and it really, like, the difference again, just like 33% of it being Centennial, it just makes like just that addition changes the Simcoe so dramatically. It's really not a big addition.
What does it do, would you say, like with the Centennial do, like to amplify the Centennial? Is it like the Centennial do to amplify the Simcoe? Is it like the flavors that Nate just mentioned, it kind of just boosts those in the Simcoe specifically?
Well, I just find, like, to me, the thing, we make a lot of beers and I use a lot of Simcoe. I love Simcoe. So I just think that at 33%, the Centennial just punches those pine flavors, and it changes the Simcoe, which is oftentimes like, I mean, Simcoe could be anything. It could be like red berry, it could be citrus, it can be like marmalade, it can be like just like all of this stuff. And so but again, we try and keep the Simcoe lot like pretty traditional with this one. And when things have drifted a little too red berry, like, this isn't going to work with Hatch, because I do want to keep it fairly consistent as it being an LCBO brand. But yeah, like the thing for me is I always get the pine doesn't exist in Simcoe. Like, I don't get pine from Simcoe, and there's very little addition of Centennial is enough to bring it to the table. And I'm like, really? Just that's all I need? Like, I just need 5 kilos of Centennial, and that's all it takes to make this pop. And apparently, yes. And it's not overdoing it. Like, we've always changed like the ratio. I changed the ratio in the whirlpool, and I'm like, no, you really don't need more than that. Like, the Simcoe does the heavy lifting, and then you just sort of bump it up with the Centennial and get, like, I think if you added more Centennial, you might be drifting a little far into that West Coast, or like traditional West Coast DC hop vibe. Whereas, again, if you don't want to think about it and you're just drinking it, you're just like, oh yeah, somebody says pine, you're like, oh yeah, pine, definitely pine. You're getting it, but it's not. If you're not getting it too, you could probably not even notice it too. And so I like sort of straddling that and kind of keeping that balanced, so that it's not leaning too hard into that traditional C hop vibe. But it's there. If you like it, it's there for you. Otherwise, you can just not pay attention.
If you want to think about it,
let it be a no
thinky.
thinky.
That's it. I like that, man. I think it's a cool approach, because it kind of like, I mean, even all the different pale ales that we all mentioned, I mean, they're all very different. And this, including Hatch, like I feel like it separates itself. Like it doesn't taste like any of those ones. And it's probably the best possible thing that you could do, is that if you wanted, I don't know, because Nate and I, like, I almost feel like over the last few years, both of us have been really like enamored back again with like, American IPAs and West Coast IPAs. And it's something that, that not the newer beer drinkers might think, or they might think it's too much, or people who think craft beer is IPAs. I've had people in our comments somewhat recently like shitting on craft beer, but they think craft beer is IPAs, not understanding that the beers that they drink are craft beer too. So it's cool to see that. Like, I like we both do. We really talk like a lot about the, like, that East meets West kind of thing. And I feel like this is like a great example of that, where it's like primarily kind of East, but it's got some of those West Coast flavors to sort of, I don't know, maybe these beers like are introducing people in, who are maybe more comfortable with the New England style. And they're like, oh yeah, I know what's up with these. And then they're like, oh, what are these flavors? Oh, this is a bit like weed. This is a bit dank, and there's a little bit more orange in here than normal. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then, when they would try a more clear or malty or West Coast IPA, it won't be such a shock to the system. It's kind of like just easing them into it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree with that. I mean, I love those, like, again, the green bushy kind of beers that are just like all those C hops. Like, I love it. And I think the first couple times that we made it, like, by design, we didn't say like anything about it. Like, right. Just sort of, this is a hazy beer, enjoy. And then, some people like really dug it, and it's kind of a more niche-y product, but it was kind of neat, because like a lot of people aren't making Chinook hazers. So it's not a common thing that people are doing. And I think if you labeled it as such, if you're like, check this one out, guys, might be a bit of a tough sell. But if you're just like, oh, and then this week we've got Greenbush, it's another 6.5% hazer, and you're like, oh, whoa, something's going on here. Like, if you don't have the preconceived notion that, wait, is this like a USDA generic hop developed in 1975 that's, like, boring? Or instead you're like, oh, something like, most people haven't had that combination of Chinook and New Zealand hazy beer, right? Like, it's just not made. So just remove the preconceived notion of what that's going to be, and just be like, drink this and see if you like it.
Yeah.
Is kind
or
of
also like and also even just look at it like like it's a pretty thick hazy beer.
sure, yes. And so then hopefully you won them over with that, right?
Yeah.
If that's
And
what they're
then,
looking for, yeah.
like, then you're like, oh yeah, okay, so it fits my criteria of like fresh, hazy, fruity, high residual sugar, good chloride to sulfate ratio. Oh, I just don't know the hops, but I'm sure it's like some banger hop. Must be.
Has to be.
Yeah.
I guess. Did you have any feedback that people were like, "What's going on?" Like, they were confused or had questions, or they were like, "Hey, I really like this. Why is this different?" Like, was there any sort of qualitative?
Well,
things like that?
it's kind of a theme here, but I am on the hill and have basically no feedback ever. Greg, I'm sure Greg had a lot of feedback. But yeah, no, I mean, we did. I'm trying to think, we did a tab takeover in Hamilton at a bar. What was it called? The
Recently?
bar is no longer. No, this was like.
Mosaic.
Is it Mosaic?
No, not
No,
Mosaic.
because they closed recently. There's the
Yeah.
Brain.
No,
the
Mark
Darren.
Horsley, who's got the barrel aged.
The Barrel Heart?
Mark, yeah, Barrel Heart, yeah.
Barrel Heart, yeah, he was affiliated with this bar.
Oh, Bruck's house.
Bruck's House.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they closed down like 2 months after I moved here. Yeah,
Yeah, so we did like a pairing dinner at Bruck's House.
dope.
And I just remember one guy there, he was like, Greenbush is like my favorite beer that you guys make. And I was like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah. You get it.
So we've got some, I mean, the feedback that I've received, I mean, I get very little like personal feedback on this stuff. So like, honestly, I have no idea, but like, it's just from people in the tap room, more or less. Yeah, like our feedback, like with regards to Untapped, or like that Untapped would traditionally be like the review process that you'd have like real feedback, I suppose. By design, like a lot of our beers are not like how you say Untapped friendly. Like if you're going table beer, you're not seeing a lot of like 4.4s on yellow flowers.
Yeah.
As it pertains to other things. So it's not like a metric that works necessarily. Like you get so much feed. There's like a lot of reviews, but across the board, it's not. If every beer could be rated like how hazies are rated, then fair. It would be like a useful feedback forum to know. What am I trying to say? Like getting constructive feedback on like Chinook hazies is difficult. I guess that's my point.
Greenbush is sitting at 3.85.
Yeah,
which is pretty decent for like, I guess, a beer that might be confusing to some. Which is pretty sweet. I'm just cruising through. The Moon Juice is 4.1.
Yeah,
which is pretty.
Yeah, we tried to keep like the most vague that we ever got was we made a saison, like it was going to be one of our core brands called Tasty, and it was a dry hop saison, and we didn't want to use the word saison. Like saison, not a good word.
Not in Ontario.
Not in Ontario.
They don't like.
So we called it a refresher. We made up a style. We called it a refresher. And so like people come in, and they're like, "Oh, what's the Tasty?" "Oh, it's a refresher." "What's a refresher?" And then so you like dance around it for as long as you can. So like we used like a lesser used strain from Escarpment that was like really popping juicy fruit, and we used a bunch of like newer German hops like Paul Mellon or Hallertau Blanc. We were able to make what I thought was a pretty unique, like kind of hazer, like saison thing that was like hopped with hops that like nobody was using really, and people are still like, I don't get it. Like,
I'm looking at the comments on Untapped. No one gets it.
Nobody gets it. And then our front of house was just like, it's a saison.
They're like, let's just make it easy.
It's a saison, like cat's out of the bag. And then we're like, oh, well, if it's a saison, you can't be making this. Like people, know, you can't. This can't be like a hazer saison. Like if we were trying to like mash these worlds and keep things a secret. But there is interest, rightfully so. Like customers want to know what they're buying, right? So
I get it. it was more. I feel like yeah, I totally understand why you did that. I'm looking at what people are saying. There was some funny ones. Like no one was saying it was shit at all. People were just sort of someone's like more of a Belgian wheat IMO. Some like thought this was hops, but turned out to be a refreshing farmhouse ale. Like it's not negative. None of it's negative.
No, it's just a little.
I think they just didn't know. They just didn't know what it was. I like that you had the balls to to give that a crack. But then even someone's like, I don't normally go for farmhouse or saison, but this is hitting just right. Oh, I know that guy. Oh, this is people that are my friends on here. That's why. Okay. Yeah, like nothing is like this is whack. Like people are like mostly just like confused. And there's some really nice photos.
Yeah.
Taking the thing, but I like that. I like that you had the guts to do something like that, man. That's kind of fun. But now maybe you're not really hiding that at all. You just like if it's a saison, saison. If it's a table beer, it is what it is, right? I guess that's
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're not really cranking the saisons. The only saison that we're really making is that table beer.
Okay.
And then aside from that, just barrel product. But yeah, just sort of like a crushable, beer like Tweedy's making. He just won gold for his valor at the World Beer Cup like a month ago.
We just had him on last week, and we had that and we had Valor during the pod, and my God, it's spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, so we have nothing like that, or like obviously we're not like comparing ourselves to that, but I'm just saying like that style.
Right.
We don't have that offering. By just it doesn't work for random people coming to the county,
totally
looking for a pint of something, and the table beer is kind of like our halfway there kind of deal. Like you can still get some of those notes, hopefully.
Well, and I think that makes I think that makes sense. It's and it's a case of you don't need to make another Valor, like you say, like Tweedy's making it, and it's fucking great. But like it doesn't there doesn't need to be a Slake version of that. I feel like Yellow Flowers really, really fits your vibe very well. Like in terms of what you're looking to offer, in terms of how it fits into your overall into your overall picture, your overall branding, in your overall theme of what you're offering. It really fits very well. It's extremely approachable, very easy drinking, but it's got complexity and nuance to it as well. It can be a no thinky, or you can or you can dig deep into it if you want. I think it can be whatever it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably for most people too, you set whatever your business is going to be, and you've created your business plan, and you're like, this is my business, and this is what our brand is, and whatever. But then in reality, you do figure out what your business actually is, and what sort of slots in with it. And I would say in the past year, we kind of have an idea of what actually our brand is, where our market is, where our place in all this nonsense is, and what is a good idea. Just that this is what we do. For some reason, we've landed on these set of parameters, and if somebody comes in and they're like, "Oh, we need a 10% Kvike," we'd be like, "Whoa, that's an interesting idea, Greg. I don't think it's going to happen this year." But you know what I mean? I just don't brewed IPAs or whatever.
Brutes were fire.
We know that.
I wish they stuck around.
But just that it wouldn't work for our sense of place, these kind of things. So
yeah.
I think it's good to have kind of a keen idea of what that sense of place is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think more than anything with COVID, it made us extremely malleable. We opened in the middle of COVID, and we had people outside exclusively. We had no furniture inside. Because that was just
you weren't allowed.
the rule, right?
Right.
And bottle shops were massive. Oh my goodness, bottles! You got to package everything and figure out distribution, and then, oh yeah, all bars are closed. Hope you didn't keg any product. I mean, they're open. Oh, I mean, they're closed. I mean, they're open. And then you're just like, oh, okay. So like being hyper malleable, so that even if like whatever you've decided is your business, like, cool, that's not going to work. So you better be okay with changing your business to fit whatever new parameters either you've decided, your customers decided, the market's decided, or just decided rather. And quite frankly, that's been something that we have been very good at in many regards, is just pivoting based on just, quite frankly, opening at COVID and navigating 2 years of garbage. Just kind of made that the new normal and allowed us to pivot and sort of define some parameters that allowed us to be a business and define those parameters and then decide what fits in those parameters, be it like beer, be it more branding, be it doing, you were saying that you met Greg through this, like all my friends little tour that we did, like, does that tour with all my friends fit in with the business? Like, like all of those decisions are decisions, right? Like, and does it fit with what we're doing? So
it definitely feels like all the things that you've done that I've experienced, and I imagine Nate would say the same, like, from an external perspective to you, because you're in it, so it's harder to tell. I don't think I've seen you do anything that didn't feel on brand or that made sense. Yeah. Like, I love knowing that Darren has all the new stuff and that I can go to a bar. Like, there was the other on Tuesday, I went to Wildcat and they had the stout on, and I like, it's cool as hell to me that it's just always there. And I feel like your beers are like, they're so approachable that they're kind of almost like you could have a Slake beer in any sort of session that you're having, and you're having some sort of succession of beers, which is typically how I would drink, whether it's on a pod or not. And they fit in this. You got something that fits in perfectly. And it's like, even if I'm, on the Friday or Saturday night and I'm really trying to dig into some new stuff that I've gone and collected or bought from Darren or ordered or whatever it might be. And there's sometimes you mentioned it, this is the theme of the pod, the No Thinkies stuff. Like, if there's a beer I don't have to think about too much, but I know it's just fucking good. I feel like you have tons of them, or any and everything that Slake puts out. I'm like, I don't have to think about it, but I can if I want to.
Yeah.
I want to think about it,
Appreciate that. That's definitely the goal. And it's hard to thread that needle. So, and like I say, I don't get feedback, so thank you.
No, you're so welcome.
I like feedback.
It's I guess we all do. You don't ever really get it, but I think you guys have encapsulated that, and I feel like, I don't know, Nate, I imagine you feel the same, but I just feel like that's your vibe. Like, it is. If you want to think, you can. If you don't have to, and it's great either way. And it slides into whichever sort of drinking session you've got. Like, it could have any of this would be like, I love a pale ale. I feel like pale ales are incredibly underrated, particularly, with the haze boy world type of shit. And I like to have, start off with a crispy or two, and then you go into a pale ale before you get into an IPA and a double and so on and so forth, and sort of work your way up. And it's nice to have something that isn't always punchy, because maybe you're having a double IPA that is going to punch you in the face, but maybe you want something like this. It's got a little bit of that Centennial in it, so it's got a little bit of that Westy vibe if you're not going to slide a West Coast in your evening type of thing. And yeah, I feel like consistently that's what you guys do. And it's just like pleasurable drinking. And it's so nice all the time. It's great, man.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I mean, when right out of the gate, when we made some of our first beers, I sent them to people I like really respected, that were doing like pretty good volume, and really just wanted to see what they thought. And like some of the most honest, like, and I was like, just say it, just rip
them apart.
Like, just say it all. Like, I want it all. And like I liked this comment, which was like, you're definitely doing something. It's not what I like, but it's like there's definitely a thing that you're doing. Like, and they're like way more traditional. But I was like, I really liked that he noted, because I was trying to keep this like softy balance thing, and he got it. And that was like one of the first comments I got on any real feedback. Wasn't that he necessarily liked it, but he could tell that I was going for something. And that is what we're trying to do, like trying to keep it pretty straight ahead, and approachable.
It's nice. Great. It's something different. It's something that sort of that it has once again, I think this episode has to be called a sense of place. I feel like that's just really like the other theme here is like, yeah, it has a place in Ontario and in any beer drinker sort of, session. And I think that's what it is, whether it's your thing or not. Like it might just be like, just like, if you drink Pilsner, it's like Mosey, it's phenomenal. It's a fantastic Pilsner. Like, crush that shit. So it's cool to hear that that's the feedback you got from fellow industry people, that you've been able to continue that and made that your thing. I can't really think of another brewery who's sort of done that same kind of niche. It feels kind of like a hyper-specific niche.
At least not with that kind of intentionality.
That's what I mean, yeah. Which is, I think, is like admirable and just cool. And also like all of that shit aside, whatever we think about it, like business wise, I think that's a smart move because it differentiates you in a market that you probably need a bit of differentiation in these days, over and above the branding, which is also very unique and consistent. Like you were saying, like I was picturing, as you mentioned, I always remember the sign slow, which is a bit of a nice segue to the next beer. But seeing that as you're driving up around that little, snaking your way into the car park, you're like, fuck, which way's the car park? Okay, it's this one. All right, then you got to walk into a park. It's like a bit of a, not a journey in a bad way, but like a fun thing. Like it's 30 seconds either way. But you're driving up, you're like, oh.
Very confrontational. Very confrontational, that driveway.
Because you're thirsty and you want to see that sunset. Man. And you're like, oh, fuck.
It's very divisive. Very divisive, that driveway. Some people love it. Like by design, we built this driveway, right? And it didn't exist. And the whole idea is you're driving away from the view, right? The whole time.
Right.
And then we put you in the forest and you park in the forest and you don't see the view.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk up and we planted trees so you don't see the view. And then you come in the tap room and you're just like, what the fuck?
There's the view.
Right?
There it is,
and
right
so there. That we were like,
what you came
for. It's going to blow people's minds.
It does every single time.
And some people are like, you see, like the production area, like we spill out onto the driveway. So like sometimes you just go out to take a breather. People are just like, oh, that driveway. Like, oh,
in the winter.
Believe that driveway. Yeah. So it's either people are like, whoa, this is crazy, or it's just like, I can't believe this place. Like, why did they put it here?
How dare they?
Why couldn't they put it somewhere else? So yeah, no, it is funny. You can
see
but hopefully, thankful that literally anybody's willing to drive up that thing and come up here. So
it's not that bad. Maybe in the winter it might be a little rough, but in the summer,
I've skated on it. I skated on it in the winter once. It froze. The whole thing froze over, and I put on my skates and skated all over it.
That would have been fun.
Nice.
I mean, dangerous, but fun.
Yeah.
I hope you went slow. Do you like that? You like that?
That was nice.
That was also a good segue. Yeah. I guess we should.
Do you want to do it?
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Oh yeah. So if anyone has ever been to Slake, there's a sign on the driveway that says slow, and I just thought that was like such a cool thing that it's saying go slow because the corners are a little tight, but also it's the name of a beer that you're going to drink when you get there.
Yes, indeed.
That lime green he was talking about earlier, actually, which is popping. Honestly, looking at it in real life, I'm like, oh wow, it's kind of fucking trippy. But I'm seeing it in the camera. Shit is mad bright. This is the lime green one you're talking about in the LCBO, right?
Yeah. So this is different, right? You see this in the LCBO. Hopefully, pops a little more. I mean, not a lot of lime green on the shelves usually.
No. Was it always this color?
No.
That's what I
it
thought.
Used to be a darker green.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, and I mean, lots of breweries are doing this. It used to be in a 355 as well, right? So,
that's when I first had it. Yes.
Well, we had a lot of beers in 355s. We started exclusively in 355s.
Okay.
Market wants 473s. That's just like
and the LCBO in particular wants 473s.
Absolutely. Like it's a no-brainer. We pivoted from 355s to 473s on our LCBO SKU. And the next week, I believe we sold 100% more.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
What is, I don't know, man. I find that so interesting. I mean, look, maybe it's an LCBO consumer, which I'm like, admittedly, I'm not. But I find it sometimes, I don't know. I just really like short cans personally. And I always find it like, I don't know, you do either more of one thing or more variances of different things. And
everybody in the industry agrees with you.
Right. But the
everybody
consumers
in the industry, every bar manager, every brewer, everybody in the industry likes short cans. Everybody likes short cans.
Right.
Short cans are better. Everybody loves them. Except for customers.
Yep.
Ultimately
it's
have
funny. Yeah. And it's just
head,
honestly, again, I don't know. I don't know. That part of it isn't really my job. But it's
the impression that I get seems to be that, like, whether it's actual number crunching or not, people seem to feel like they're getting more bang for their buck with like with a tall can.
It's perception of value, whether it's real or not.
It is it is perception of value. I don't think there's any actual number crunching on dollars per mil, but I think it's exactly that. It's perception of value.
It does work out. That I'm going to say, like, this is not my wheelhouse. This is definitely Eric, but like cheers.
Boys. Look at that head, by the way. Like,
it's glorious.
It's a fucking meringue right there.
Yeah.
Beautiful nose. Just soft. It's like a ramped up hatch. Like, it's definitely.
Well, that's basically it. Yeah. We subbed out. I mean, it is still half Simcoe and the other half is Citra. I mean, we just took out the Centennial.
Gotcha.
And then
that makes sense.
This is, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but this is just reverse engineered to be the most amount of hops that I can put in to be the price point, which is allowed to be on the shelves.
That isn't to say,
no, ours is $4.95. But that's taxes deposit in at $4.95. So
LCBO. Gotcha.
You just go clackety clack clack, divided by, subtract, yada yada, excise, blah blah blah. Then you're given a cost per mil, and then take your logistics and all your nonsense out, and you're like, oh, that's what I have. Okay, and then try to make it. And this was this is what I could do with it, you know?
Gotcha.
And I think, like, it's popping, it's got the balance, it's got the residual sweetness. Like, it fits the bill of being a hazy, again, with as much hops as I can put in, which is compared to, like, what I'd be doing otherwise, like, for, like, banger one-offs. This is about 2/3 of the dry hop, I would say. Right. And it's done at, like, this isn't Rowaka. This isn't just like hop keef, insane cosmic yeast. This isn't any of that. Like, it's a whole different game here where you're like, I want this to hopefully be able to be on the shelves still like you grabbing this at an LCBO on your way up to Halliburton or wherever you're driving up and going to a cottage, and you're like, I'm going to crush some sessionable 6.5% IPAs that are still going to have good nose, good head retention, good hop presence. At a price point that isn't like, honestly, if we made these like, I don't even know what we sell an IPA for, but it's probably like a one-off IPA is probably $5.50 before tax, I would say. I think that's pretty standard.
Let me check.
Like we have Misty right now is our one-off IPA.
Misty's $5.50 on the website,
yeah.
which means it's $5.50 before tax at a $4.73.
Probably. So this is a $4.95 taxes in, right? So this is a different game. And so, you know, everybody's got their take on the equivalent, like a Blood Brothers Chimay, right, is like a comparable
to this one.
Well, like in terms of like a price point LCBO brand, right?
Understood.
Like there are metrics that you're trying to figure out, whether that's like the Burdock Ducks. That's like a very different beer, but it's a similar price point IPA, and how they go about hitting those parameters to hit that price point. We're all playing different games, be it like, oh, I've cracked a little bit of a logistics solution, or I've figured out like I've sourced these hops differently, or whatever, like I'm making bigger volume, therefore the cost is lower. There's all these different ways you can go about it, and you just look at the tools in your toolbox and you're like, okay, well, I want to play. How do I get in? And so this is what we sort of did, and I'm happy with this being like a crushable, hazy offering that's sweet, that isn't skimping like at all. We're still dry hopping like very high, and it's right up to where we can't do it. You know, like it's still like makes sense to do it, but we're right there. And this is where we were like, okay, we can do this. And that was like, can we actually make this beer? Can we actually make a beer that we think will hold up to what we want it to be, and be an LCBO offering as an IPA? And I think so. But
I certainly fucking think so.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Like it's a different beast than, you know, a chewy, like massive IPA that was canned yesterday, right? Like this has to hold up on the shelf.
That's a good point.
For like 4, 5, 6 weeks, right?
Yep.
We're very good at shipping out. Our logistics company for our LCBO SKUs is great. So like all of this, it matters, you know, and it's like, you try and tighten. It's like logistics is as important as making the beer pretty much. And like, you're just always like, just trying to dial everything in because you want people to be drinking the beer like as fresh and hopefully your LCBO is storing the beer cold, and like, you know, like fighting for that space and like all those parameters. It's like, and I do my part. I'm like making beer in the production area, like, and then I can it. I'm like, oh, it's all done. But like, that's the beginning of that beer's journey. And then it fucking goes on a truck and has a terrible time for 4 weeks till it's drunk, you know? So, that's basically the design of this beer. And again, like I just was curious to flip this to you guys just because like this is different than just like showcasing. Like I would also love to flip you this Trust beer that's going to be canned like next week.
Well, that sounds insane.
But like this is also just like a little bit different to see like this is the game basically.
Yeah.
To me, like this is the game of like, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to make the most delicious IPA we can and get it to people we don't even really, I don't think we even say it on our shelf talker for the LCBO, but again, this is Barnell malt, right? This is local malt. Like you wouldn't even know then. And we were kind of mentioning this earlier. Like, I don't think you could, if I didn't sort of bring it to your attention again, I don't think you'd be like, oh, that like malt character is like not okay in this beer, right? Like,
no,
it seems okay. Like it seems fine.
Great.
The only thing it might be doing is giving like a little more sweetness, if anything, than you're accustomed to. But I mean, most
and in a New England IPA, that's not a bad thing.
It's totally fine. Yeah.
Totally. One thing,
yes, sorry, I feel comfortable speaking for Cee on this as well. Is that like that other IPA that you're mentioning? Like, I have no doubt that it would be delicious. But I'm very glad that you sent us Slow, because I think that this is such an interesting kind of analysis of what thought has to be put into an IPA to be put on LCBO shelves. Like there's so much to go into it, to kind of to look at what the end result needs to be and reverse engineer it into a recipe and into the product that actually ends up into the glass. It makes for such an interesting conversation and analysis here. So I'm actually glad that you sent us this one, because this has been such a journey to kind of unfold how this beer came to be.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a whole game to be able to try and get into this. And again, with the LCBO SKU on the IPA, that's relatively new. Hatch has been in for a couple years. Slow has been in for a couple months, and Super Sunset just got in last week. So that's a pretty big ramp for us compared to just a couple months ago, where we had one SKU and now we have 3 going into high season. It's like a real difference for us. And that huge difference in volume, it just changes a lot. It changes a lot about what we need to do and you got to keep the beast happy. It's not like if the LCBO is like, oh, we want like 400 cases. You're like, we don't have it. That's not a thing like that can ever happen, right? Like you need, if you're in 200 LCBOs and they decide they want your beer and you say, oh, sorry, I don't have any of that beer. Do you think that Rachel at LCBO 473 is going to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll try next week.
She's going to be
I don't think she's going to. She's like, those guys are not a business. So there's like a whole bunch of like new games that start occurring when you make these changes. It's not like, oh, well, we'll just do this and see how it goes, go with the flow and see if this is going to work for us. It's like, well, I know how it's going to go if you take that approach. They're gonna list you and then they're gonna delist you. So there's a lot of fun games, but ultimately, like we were talking, like it's good opportunity and like it's a good market to get into. So you just have to take it like hyper seriously, which you should. They're a business. They're a massive business. You're lucky to be doing work with them. It's a huge market you otherwise wouldn't be able to get into, but you just got to really, really be on your game, and like take things extremely seriously, including all the logistics to get it there, including like box design. Box design has been huge for us, like changing our boxes to make them like pop on the LCBO shelves, having tearaways so that they're easy for staff to like rip the top off and like make the beers available, designing that, like
whole thing,
all of it is nuts. That like that was Eric's side project for a very long time.
Yeah. I totally bet. If I may just interrupt for 1 second, I broke the seal because we broke the seal. I got to piss like a fuck. Do you guys need to go or do you want to keep talking? I'll just run out real quick. If you guys are good, I can just run.
I'm good.
I'm good. Okay. You know what? I'll let y'all keep going. I've got some questions after, but yeah, keep going. I'll be back in like 30 seconds anyway.
Sounds good.
Boom.
Yeah, Eric sounds like a busy guy.
Eric's got a lot on his plate. I mean, I think we're all pretty busy. I mean, Greg's in Ottawa. It's almost coming on to 12. I think Greg got in from Toronto last night at 2. He's in Ottawa today.
Oh my God.
He'll be in a couple hours. Like, we'll see if I'm still here, but like, he's going to be in pretty late. Yeah, I mean, that we were kind of talking about this, but like, you just kind of gotta do as many things as you possibly can until you realize that you can't do it anymore. And then relinquish whatever to hopefully somebody. Yeah,
no kidding. Yeah, and this conversation about the LCBO has been so fascinating because it definitely seems like one of those things of, if you just kind of take the perspective of just trying to roll the dice and see what works with it, then like that seems like a recipe of not being listed for very long.
Well, there's so many different ways to approach even working with them. Like, it can just be an add-on, right? Like, you can just consider that you want to go regionally with your LCBO and like be in 10 or 20 LCBOs within 5 kilometers of your brewery, so that maybe somebody sees you, and that's going to increase traffic to your taproom.
Sure.
Like, and then you say, that's all we need, right? Different strokes. It depends what you're after. And, you can go fully to, a lot of my friends are exporting to different provinces. We've done some exporting to like Nova Scotia. I think that's more or less, and Quebec. So, like you could decide that there's a market and that it's worth your time and effort to do that for either financial gain or exposure or marketing purposes or whatever. And I think LCBO could be considered the same thing. Like,
oh, for sure.
Having your brand at every LCBO, there's a value to it. Is there a value to somebody in like Marathon, Ontario, knowing that you exist? Maybe not. If our goal is to get them there, like maybe listing it there at the LCBO there isn't necessarily worth it. But those are decisions that we make on sort of a case by case basis.
Yeah, that's a case of you might get someone drinking your beer one time who might not have been drinking it otherwise, but if you have someone trying your beer in Ottawa, who might not have tried it before, that's someone who might be within driving distance of Prince Edward County, who may end up coming to visit if they're if they've got a trip in the area.
Absolutely. Like we've talked about it. Like we've switched. We have so many logistics companies. We have different logistics companies for like home delivery. We have a different company that does our LCBO SKUs across the province and the kegs of those, and we have another company that deals with the other products that go to more sort of like regional, like further away destinations. And then we have another company that deals with like Kingston, Toronto, Ottawa kind of stuff.
Right.
And so it comes up, for example, like maybe we sell to, it's like we get some exposure in Sudbury, and then you're like, actually, wait, if we do that, then maybe these people might want our product, and we have no idea how to get it there. And then you're like, we have no logistics solution to do it. And you're like, oh, wait, no, we do. Like you switch logistics companies or vice versa. You have a logistics company. You're like, oh, this is great. You're like, oh, we'll order it. And you're like, oh, we actually don't have a logistics company to do that anymore. Or like just maybe you do, but the price point is like, it's almost the same as Canada Post. And you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense to do anymore. So like, again, just reevaluating constantly is just something that needs to happen, where you're like, you know what, Sudbury's not a market right now. Like we just can't figure out how to get the beer there. We're losing money with every case that we send.
Yeah.
Like not saying that's the case, no knocks against Sudbury or anything.
Nickel City,
but like
out.
random random place that's not close to us, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And those choices they change on the fly constantly. And you need to be aware of that. Or if you're not, you're not doing your business any favors, because you'll be losing money on those things, right?
Yeah. I was going to also say one thing that, like, both of these beers were from April, and it's only the beginning of June. So it's like, to give or take like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a self-confessed, what would you call it? Like a date princess as such.
Yeah.
Like, I prefer typically IPAs that are super fresh, like 1 to 4 weeks sort of at max.
Sure.
Both Hatch and Slow have been fantastic. And you mentioned something earlier, exactly, about making these beers shelf stable for LCBO. And I don't know if everyone has nailed that yet, or if everyone is maybe spending enough time or R&D or whatever it might be.
You're being polite. Not everyone has nailed that yet.
Yeah, I'm being as polite as possible. Yeah, it's and also I also understand that sometimes it could just be my particular palate as well. I've been told that maybe I'm a bit picky about that type of stuff.
Yeah,
but I would never have guessed that these two are that 8 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, go crazy over dissolved oxygen.
Okay.
Like Looney Tunes. Like the beer, I've got the C box down there right now on an IPA we transferred today, and it's at about 8 or 9 ppbs. There is no oxygen in this thing. Nothing.
Okay.
We have purged everything to we've gone cuckoo bananas on purging everything with CO2 to like just crazy, and dialing in weights on cans and ensuring, just doing everything, like just going nuts to just murder any oxygen that's anywhere and ensuring it is nowhere near the beer. And you either do that or you don't. And there is, when you package beer, specifically like kegs, not really so much, but with cans, you pour beer in a can, you fob it, which is like you pour the beer in the can, it creates a head, and it spills out of the can, pushing any oxygen, and then you put a lid on and you steam it. That's how it works. So you intentionally break the carbonation out of the beer to make it so that any headspace, because the can has to be open to fill it, right? So you want foam to spill out, you can it, and then you steam it, right? You put the lid on and you steam it. So that there's no avoiding that the beer will come in contact with air, like it will happen. So you see an increase in canning, but on transfer, the industry standard is that you keep your oxygen below 100 ppbs post package.
What's ppb? Is it points per billion or
parts per billion?
Parts per billion.
And that's it's pretty good. We try and if we can have it starting at under 10 after transfer, and then now you have the canning company coming in, and we've got great techs. Shout out Canning Collective. They're doing great work for us, and just checking constantly, really adamant about many checks on every fill head throughout the process, and just ensuring that we're trying to keep that number extremely low. And if you are totally Looney Tunes, OCD crazy about purging, transfer, if you're filtering, you just are losing your mind over this, then that's basically, it's kind of not rocket science. It's just that you have to take money, and you take your money and you trade it to a person for carbon dioxide, and then you take this carbon dioxide and just use copious amounts of it to get rid of all the oxygen. Like, and then if you just do that, then the shelf stability is like way better. And totally anecdotally, and like probably just like nonsense, but I give a lot of credit to Barnell malt. Like, so I don't know if it's warranted or not, but just these things hold up. And in some cases, I've actually even found that I prefer, like when we were cranking a lot of hazies in the fall, like I liked them more the older they got. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. And the only thing and this is total voodoo nonsense, but especially that those were made with cosmic yeast, which is like a thiol releasing yeast. And there's a lot of bound thiols in really anything. Like some people are adding hops to the mash to increase the thiol production for these thiol releasing yeasts. There's also a lot of thiols in like how do I say this? Sometimes I love Barnell. Obviously, I buy a lot of it, but it's like super inefficient. Like there's a lot of like scud in it, or like there's a lot of extra bonus stuff. It's like floor malted malt. So like it's not done as efficiently as possible. All that to say, there's like, in my opinion, talking to my friends as well, there are extra thiols possibly that are bound in this like floor malted barley. And so if you're using these yeasts with barn owl, I would argue anecdotally with very little evidence that I think that you can get more thiols produced because of this yeast than like a traditional malt. I think that's real.
Right.
And so ultimately, the cosmic with this malt, given like an extended period in the can, the flavors change. They just do. And they have trended towards something that I find to be more positive
over time
in package, which is
odd and unique.
Which is cool. Not well, yeah, it's unique. Yeah.
No, sorry, keep going.
Well, just like an example, we did a thing before and after. I'm trying to think, that was a collab with. Oh, that was Sir John.
Oh, the sun was that the Eclipse one?
No, that was different. That was just a one-off. Yeah, but the before and after was that was a Hopkeef one actually. So we made a base beer and then we added Hopkeef. We made before and then we packaged half of it and then we added freestyle Hopkeef and made after. And like we're still getting reviews like that one on Untapped. That people are like drinking it recently, really good reviews. And this is an example, like that was cosmic yeast, thiol producing yeast that we packaged, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe 3.5 months ago.
Feels about right.
People are like, yeah, this is good. Like an actual good hazy, which is again, kind of a weird, again, at 3.5 months.
Yeah. That is very odd. Do you have an ultimate time, or like, okay, what's a better question? Like, there's like you were saying that it's getting better as it gets older, which is completely out of the norm for any sort of New England IPA. Yeah,
that's a fairly controversial statement. Like I would say with Cosmic, that is the case. Like I do find some time helps it out. If it's like a traditional New England,
like with the foggy IPA, or whatever.
Yeah, with foggy or the juice, we do find like it needs some time to calm down in package. Like you could package it,
and you might need
might need a week or two, and then it's like hitting its super prime. Like then it's really good to go. This slow, I don't think it's getting better. I would just say that it holds up.
Yeah.
Like whereas Cosmic, Cosmic can actually arguably to one's palate
get better,
get arguably better. But with Foggy, the goal here is certainly to try and make it hold up for as long as possible. Now, like, we haven't really like tested this, and like I kind of sent you guys some older stuff just to because that's what we're doing, right?
No,
but I'm saying, like, this is the idea of the LCBO is like it's got to sit on a shelf, right?
Yeah,
even if it's a cool room or not. And this is the thing, and I think there's an education aspect to this, and I was curious about this because I'm like I said, I always look at dates, and I was like, okay, looked at Hatch, I'm like, all right, sweet, and then which was April 2nd,
April 8th,
and the one I have.
Sorry, you said Hatch.
So it was April 8th,
yeah,
and I was like, this has no business being this good for 8 weeks, and I feel like if you told, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me, is really what it is. And I'm like, that's phenomenal. That's amazing to me. So it's like, what is I was going to say, what's the optimal point or what's say Troy always told us from Badlands was like around 4 weeks is when he thinks it kind of hits its like sort of peak. Each brewer would have their own, but then as you're talking, you've got multiple different yeasts. You said Cosmic lasts longer, so I feel like that's probably not the best question. Like, is there across the board, maybe like this is the extent of the lifespan? Like maybe that lifespan
we would say, like, I think if you're talking LCBO
specifically, yes,
yeah, I would say like 3 months is when you're like, okay, like that'll do.
Okay.
I think.
And we're 2/3 to that, and this is it doesn't even feel like it's close to. Once again, I'm hypersensitive to this stuff. I don't even feel like it's even remotely close to it. Like I would never have.
No, I don't think like, and you can't really control what they're doing, like unless you actually go to these places, right? So you don't have a say in that unless you actually are actively going to these places. Even controlling what's going out from your logistics company can be difficult. Knowing what date coded stuff you have sent them, and you've sent them 3 or 4 different SKUs, like the same, sorry, I should say one SKU, but with 4 different date codes. And then you're like, what are you sending out? Tough for you to know that. Like that's, especially across different logistics companies. So, and when you're a small company and you're trying to like track that stuff, extremely difficult. So the name of the game is trying to keep your inventory numbers down enough that you're only sending the freshest stuff to your logistics company, and you're keeping the numbers low enough there that they have to be churning there.
Gotcha.
And not holding on to old product.
Yeah.
Again, another boring game to play. Many boring games to play, and that's one of them.
I almost feel like on paper it's boring, but the reality of it is the opposite of that. Like it's like if you're the consumer and you're in the LCBO or an indie bottle shop, because Slake has a really great presence in indie bottle shops, I've found. And I think that's really important. Like as a being nerd myself, and I go to Durand every week. Sometimes I was there today I was getting stuff for Nate that I will ship to Nate type of thing to, because it's the easiest way, even for him in Ottawa. It's easier for me to get the stuff from there and get it to him. I love the way Chris out there handles it. It's beautiful, but I feel like it's not boring at all, because we do need to, you as a business owner want to make sure you get the freshest stuff, and me as the consumer want it from, because it depends on the logistics company. I know there's some that are a little slower or maybe inconsistent or unpredictable that don't always deliver on time. And I was talking to Chris today about a particular beer that he's been waiting on from a brewery that we talked about like 3 weeks ago, and it still hasn't arrived. And we're like, what the fuck is this beer? And he's like, I don't know, I guess I should probably follow up with them and stuff. And me and Nate would talk about it because it was on the list of beers to get for Nate and for me too. And I was like, I'll tell you off air, because I don't want to shit on It's not the brewery's
Yeah.
fault. It's the logistics company's fault.
I know who. Yeah, I know.
You know who I'm talking about. I think any Ontario brewery knows who we're talking about. No shade, but like it is what it is. Like I don't know. Like I don't know what the
there is a very
intricacies
common. God bless every account that knows that breweries are dealing with that, and that's just part of, like, there's no getting around.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a certain size brewery, you got to do certain things to get you the client beer. You're stuck with the options you're stuck with, and luckily, thank goodness, many people in the industry on the other end know that that's the case. And if they want to get in the game and get these beers, unless they're coming to the brewery to pick them up,
they're looking at their watch.
This is how we do. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a lot of the indie shops, at least someone like Darren, I know he goes to the ones that are within driving distance every sort of Thursday. But yeah, it's not always possible to get to Prince Edward County from Hamilton. It's a bit of a hike, that'd be a fucking 7 to 8 hour drive return. So not practical, but yeah, it's a big challenge for every element of the process, whether it's the brewery itself, the store, the LCPO, whatever it might be. And I guess really coming back to it, it's the very least, it's awesome that you're able to get all of those numbers as far as the DO and all the other canning things to keep the product as shelf stable and as fresh and as crisp and as great as possible. And to me, this has been a bit of an eye opener for me this episode, because I won't lie, I have a big hesitancy of buying beers that are any more than maybe 3 weeks old, because I don't know when I'll get to them. If I know I'm going to get to them that weekend or something, then cool. Yeah. But if I don't know when I'm going to get to them, I probably would just not. And it's probably not the fairest thing, because there is now I know for certain that Slake has a quality thing that I can drink a 2-month-old Slake beer, and it basically tastes as good as 2, 3, 4 weeks. That's very appealing to me, and that's very relieving, because it's a bit of a burden always, being so annoyingly picky about stuff. I'm like, well, I've enjoyed these thoroughly. Like, there isn't a single drop of alcohol in any of the glasses to my left here. So, I think that's kudos to you guys for really doing that. And then now it comes down to that education of letting the consumer know that, hey, like, we really take pride in this, and you can drink this beer up until around this stage of age, and it's going to be great, and you're going to have a fantastic experience as we intended, which I think is important.
Yeah, and I think there's only so many. If you're our size and you're trying to make something that's what I perceive to be shelf stable, the only solution is like copious amounts of money, probably more than we need to do, but we don't have the tools also that, like, bigger breweries would just dial this in and be like, oh, you wanted to have your DOs at under like 15 ppbs, like, this is like, you just attach this thing to the blow off arm, and then you'd go, and then when it's like you've hit the number, then you would stop, and we don't know the number, so you just go longer. You're like, that seem long enough? No, longer.
Yes, no.
I imagine that machine that tells you how long it is rather expensive.
The C box is about, I mean, I've always said 30 grand, but now it's probably more like 40 grand. The C boxes are not cheap. So
inflation's
okay. Like,
so what we've got instead is Nick's intuition.
Yeah. Well, that's basically it. More, always.
Always do more.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much to if somebody gives you a kick at the can and they're willing to go for it, like, you want to have done everything you think that you can to give somebody the product that warrants them taking a stab at you, right? And so just being aware of that constantly and trying to do all those things, you're like, oh, just purge for an extra half hour. I mean, that's the goal. And it doesn't always work still, even. Like, there's still outliers constantly. and that's just the case. And then you're like, okay, well, we'll purge an extra hour next time.
I get it. And it's a constant balance, it seems like. And kind of on a bit of a flip side, I mean, I know we're just hitting about the 3-hour mark here. This is, I knew we would chat for a while because we were saying off air that you're a fantastic, what's the word? Talker. I was trying to think of the better word for it. But shall we get into the final bad boy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
So this is something different. Personally, Nate, I don't know about you. I have never had any of Slake's barrel aged stuff, so I'm actually quite excited to.
This is my first Slake bottle.
I'm excited. Love a good barrel aged beer, particularly of the style that Slake are doing. It's something that I find that whenever I do get to drink something like this, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, look, it's a thing of like you can't mess with like you can't go wrong with this kind of stuff from the county. I find it's the same one thing when you like if you come across a bottle of kind of like a specialty thing like from Matron or or whatnot, like you're in for something special.
Couldn't agree more. On this particular beer. I know Nico will be able to tell us a lot more about it, but this feels quintessentially county,
indeed,
county AF, as far as the ingredients here. I think I'll just let Nick talk about it. So this is a barrel aged sour, Darren the One-Eyed Cat. I love that a cat's called Darren. By the way, I feel Darren's very Australian. I don't know why. I don't think it's to me it's fucking Dazza. I know many Darrens. Talk about it, Nick. Talk about this. Ooh, that's an aggressive. I love that.
This is so Darren is Greg's one-eyed cat.
Okay.
Darren was a farm cat, and I believe he just showed up on the scene, and then he left, and then he came back, and he had one eye. And took him to the vet. All's good. But Darren's, he's just got one eye. His, I believe it's his left eye. It's just like it's fur over his eye now. And
we don't know what happened.
He I think he got attacked by like a raccoon or something. But he is
Darren
present all the time on our property. He's roaming around, catching field mice, leaving them wherever. It's just he owns the joint. He struts around like he owns the joint.
Lets the chickens know what's up.
The chickens are so cool. I forgot about the chickens.
He rules the joint for sure.
Fucking in Australia we call him Dazzler. The Dazzler.
The premise of the beer is just like it's a barrel aged saison that we put on Cab Sauv skins that came from Rose Hall, a winery in the county.
Yes.
And it's like copious amounts. Like we basically filled an IBC as full as we could with the Cab Sauv skins, and put barrel aged beer on it for this one. I think was 2 months, and then racked it off and put it in maturation tanks for probably about another 3 or 4 months usually, and then bottle condition it for about the same 3 to 5 months. And again, like trying to keep everything pretty, I mean, gets a little sloppy at this point. Like this is an 8% beer, but still hopefully conceivably possibly balanced. I like to call them low ABV wines, these things. Okay. They're not high ABV beers. Like 8%, I like to think that they're like crushable wine. Not that it's like high ABV like beer. You know, it's like cold, easy, effervescent, balanced, not too sour, not too funky. You know, this is beer, big wine presence still. It is a sense of place, you know, still very much something we're doing and incorporating with another company from the county. So that's the gist of it. Cheers.
I love that, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Get that in you. It looks beautiful. The color is spectacular. Oh shit, yeah. Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Oh,
wow. So it's
yeah.
an
Oh my god.
18-month-old barrel-aged beer, conditioned on Cab Sav skins from Rosso. That is glorious. I mean, it's just like you mentioned Welch's grape earlier from the hops that you were smelling. I'm kind of getting a bit of that here in the most positive, beautiful way.
That too. I get that too.
Yeah, it's just like this big, bright, sweet, just punchy, like red grape thing going on. It's funky. Once again, with all things Slake, the best word to describe it is soft. In the most positive way. It's very smooth. 8%. If you didn't tell me it was 8%, I would have probably thought 5 to 6, I guess. It's drinking super smooth.
Yeah, this could fuck you right up.
Yeah, it's funny because I will mention no names here, but it was on tap. I think it was in Hamilton. It was the Brain or something. I can't remember where. But I had a buddy, and they bought a keg, and they were selling 20-ounce pours like for $9 or $10.
20 ounce?
Oh my god!
Or like whether it was 16 or 20, but they were selling pints of this, and my buddy was just there and drank, 4 or whatever. Like he had quite a few.
That's a lot
because he didn't really know. He was just like, "Oh, this is crush." It drinks very easy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, way too easy.
And yeah, it's not. You definitely don't want to be. We're trying to keep people like. This is a 250 glass. We sell beer in 250s and 400s.
Smart.
And just keep it. We're trying to keep like. This is a sipper, even if it drinks easy.
Yeah,
try and keep it as a
be
sipper.
Careful. That would. Oh man, that would have been sloppy. I don't even. Oh geez, I don't even want to picture how that would have ended.
Yeah, not good. No bueno.
No.
But ultimately, that does happen from time to time where you're selling BA product, kind of like a keg. We keg condition everything, so we bottle condition, we keg condition, right? So then we send kegs off to accounts. And yeah, if they're just an account that pours pints, then they're pouring pints,
Oh my god!
They might not know about that.
This should really be pouring like an 8 to 10 ounce tops.
I was gonna say, particularly an 8%. Like, whilst that isn't like massive, having a 16. Look, I guess that's what we're having anyway. Of that,
maybe 12 tops.
yeah, true. I mean, 8, but still, it's like you need to like savor it as opposed to.
Yeah,
I'm even looking through Untapped quickly here, and it seemed like a lot of people who are drinking this are sharing it, which makes sense.
I mean that's definitely the concept of really everything, like the bottle size.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 3 formats that are pretty popular with barrel aged product, right? Like there's either the 750, this is a 500, or a 375, and pluses and minuses to really every format. We figured this one for us allows for sharing with basically one other person, like I don't know, a pasta, a steak, like any fat really. Just it cuts it, right? It's like
a fatty red meat, a fatty cheese.
Yeah.
Like basically anything on a charcuterie board would like this could go with.
No question. Like even just picturing that with the, like you said earlier, Nick, was the low ABV wine. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. And then Nate, you're saying with like the charcuterie or like a steak or something like that. I'm like, fuck, it's midnight, but I'm hungry now. This is money. Tiff's gonna love this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is my first barrel aged beer from you guys. Excuse me. And I feel like this is a style that thankfully Barrel Hard opened a place out here that I've been to a few times, and you know, digging into the style a bit more, but it's like a style that I don't always either gravitate towards or just, you know, you just don't always have it. So whenever I have a farmhouse or something like this, like barrel aged stuff, or I'm just like, why don't I drink this more? This is fantastic. It's like sort of exquisite, like liquid art. Like it's really.
Can you just convince another, I don't know, 500,000 people to get into it in Ontario?
Okay, guys, hear me out.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, like it is that, and it's like the quintessential example of like trying to achieve balance in a beer is like blending, and so like I love it. I love trying to do it. It's super hard and niche, and like the price point that's demanded for it, it's not all of it's hilarious. Like these bottles, they cost like $1.25 for us, right? And like that's just the bottle, and then the label, you know, and then forget about labor, forget about losses that you have in barrel aged product. Like there's a lot. Barrel aging is nuts, and then ultimately you're like, oh, so these bottles, I don't even know what this bottle costs, but somewhere between like $12 to $14.
It was 14 on the website.
Like, yeah, and
that was like,
wait, that's the same amount of beer as this, like by volume, pretty much. Yeah, and you don't. We've talked about this, like. You don't have, I can explain to you why that's the case in probably 120 seconds, but you might only have like 12. So it's like, that's a tough, I have no idea. The answer to that is I have no idea how you convince, or how, not convince, but how do you even make the pitch? It's a tricky one. On premise, we found with the wine, you can make the pitch because like people are in Prince Edward County. This is wine. There's a wine beer made with wine from the county. Color, you know, color matters a lot on premise for us here. Nice day, sunny day. Whoa, what's that person have in their glass? Like that is like vibrant.
It's beautiful.
Violet, pink, purpley, whatever.
That's one of those things like you drink with your eyes first. Yeah, absolutely. So like on premise, it's a lot easier. But yeah, when you're on a shelf, like we've talked about with the LCBO, or if you're on a bottle shop or something, you gotta make the case, and the only way that somebody's gonna know is by either the staff there saying, you got to check this out. Otherwise, they got to discover it for themselves, and that's a hell of an ask for somebody to figure that out on their own. Reading a label and figuring that the combination of those things is something that they might gravitate towards.
Yeah. I imagine that you wouldn't even be able to make this in the volume enough to supply an LCBO, as far as like.
Oh no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
This is an LCBO, like.
No, this is like fun, special come to the brewery shit.
Yeah, and we serve it like a keg conditioned in the tap room, or we will serve it. We'll sell bottles to go, and we do have some accounts. Like it's on lists in restaurants and so on. But again, that's the extent of it. I think.
They're an interesting style that, like we were talking about, like in Quebec. I mean, I was in Montreal for 10 years, like I said, and like the shits were everywhere and people loved it and everybody I knew drank it and stuff. And then I almost feel like you were talking about the Quebec people who stay in your Airbnb and they come. I can even think of a few people that I know personally from Montreal who it actually surprised me that all these Quebec people were going to Prince Edward County, because I thought, my girlfriend's from Toronto, so we used to go back all the time, like once a month. So like, I was like, how do these Quebec people know about fucking Prince Edward County? Yeah. So like to me,
like La Chapin from Quebec City, she's in Prince Edward County all the time.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Interesting. And like my boy Fred, like I do a lot of like trades and stuff with him, and like he's a big barley wine stout guy, but he goes to Prince Edward County. He knows everything. He goes to Slake all the time. He goes all the different places, and this is the type of stuff that those cats would definitely prefer. Do you see that? Do you see the Quebec people maybe gravitating towards your barrel aged stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, totally. They're my people. Honestly,
Man,
like
Quebec
the Quebec palate is what I'm into. Like they prefer, or not prefer, but they trend more towards barrel aged products, saison and IPAs.
Yeah, they're into that hard.
Big stouts,
like
barley wines.
That's sort of their jam.
Yeah.
You know, and so like if somebody's in like an actual interest in barrel aged product and saisons like that, I'm really into that stuff. We don't see a lot of it here. You know, we don't see a lot of it in Ontario. It seems like I can't think of the last time I have talked about barrel aged product, like to be like for more than like a 15-second sales pitch, you know?
Interesting.
Wow.
And so
that sucks, man.
Yeah, it's a reality of the market. And I mean, I do get it. Like it's difficult. It's crazy times, right? Like you got to choose how you're going to spend your money right now. And like, everything's tighter and barrel aged product's expensive. There's no denying it. So I think, again, totally anecdotally, no concept if that's reality, but I think that's got to be it. That pivot from like, you know, extremely high end barrel aged product. You know, it's like, oh, we're running out of money. Are we going to buy a case of Bordeaux wine or high end bourbon and barrel aged beers? Maybe we won't this year. Like, I think that's the easy thing to ask.
Yeah. Which is a shame, but I mean, I guess they have their place, and you know, if you're able to still at least sustain some sort of small amount of it, then it keeps that element going. You know, being someone who, like yourself, who has a lot of experience in that world and it can do it at a high level. It would be a shame to see this go, and I know we've seen like even this year alone, like Stillfield's closed. You know,
sure.
Who did exclusively that, and you know, but then you're seeing Barrel Heart thrive and open a tap room. So to me, that's optimistic, right? Like, you know, that we're like, fuck, well, you know, someone who's doing this style at a high level, that's all he does with Mark. I'm like, all right, well, and they're killing it. I've been there every time I've been there. The shit is random. I'm lucky to get a seat. And it's, you know, the Dundas, I don't know if you guys have been, but Dundas is a beautiful town that's, you know, like a nice little older school town. And, you know, they bring in pop-up food and stuff to make it interesting. And it's like a cool experience. So I think that's more like people like that at least are driving it. So at the very least, if he's decided to hang his hat on it, then it allows, hopefully will like push the vibes, you know, push the existence of this thing so that other breweries can be like, well, you know what? Maybe I don't have 13 of them, but I can have one or two, and people will know more about it. Because of the breweries they're doing it. Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love it. This is great. So look, I know we're getting late here. Nick, dude, this has been fucking so good, dude. I'm so like, once again, both Nate and I have been large Slake fans for many. You said you come out to 4 years this fall, right?
I think so. I'm fairly certain that's real. Yeah.
I believe you.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Eric posted, I think I was mentioning, but I think he posted this week that we broke ground 5 years ago.
Which you said it took about a year to get going. So
yeah, so that all sounds right. Like it's like October is our anniversary. So yeah, I'm gonna say 4
October
years
2020.
October.
Okay, so that is incredible. For some reason, that seems so short. I feel like I've been a fan for longer than that, but maybe it's been around that time. I don't know. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your whole, everything that you guys are doing. I think it's a fantastic contribution to the Ontario craft beer scene, whether it's the barrel aged stuff, which is our first time. I don't know about you, Nate, but at least for me, the first time with this, but it is beautiful. But with the other, which I'm like, I almost feel like this is crazy that this is fronted on. This is spectacular stuff. And the other beers now, it's in the LCBO, and I'm seeing you know, I just feel like it's I don't know. I appreciate, and it's my favorite place in Prince Edward County to cut. Like, how can you go to Prince Edward County and not go to that?
Oh my god! Like, if you've ever like, if you have not had the pleasure of visiting at all, you're really missing out. But like, and even if you have been, if you haven't been there at sunset, like, you need to get back. You need to get back.
It's
the sunset is certainly it's not nothing.
Are you saying it's
like, especially it's definitely super. And we if you're down in the production area and like we're finishing a double brew or something, and you waltz out of the loading dock and it's like coming up to sunset, like people know sunset's a thing, and you just like go out and you're just like,
let's get
people coming from Sandbanks are just like
rushing.
It's, you want to be here right for that as it's going down, because like
nothing beats
and
it.
It's funny enough, like the sunsets in the fall, like late summer, end of the fall, that's where the colors start just like popping and being like super weird. Like just knowing the different sunsets, but like that's the time of year where it's like just lunacy, like
bonkers,
just crazy colors and stuff. So
I want to shout out, I appreciate as well for the for the fall. Sorry, quick aside.
Well, I'll tell you, just a quick aside to that. We actually for this summer, we're going to actually do long sleeves for the summer. And so, because we dabbled in it a little bit last year, and we're like, no, we're going to go for it. And so we brewed it for the summer. I don't know. We brewed it like pretty recently, and we're basically done it. And this was like, we were like, okay, we're going to have a little bit of long sleeves. And it is funny. This is like a whole other kettle of fish where you're like, okay, we made quite a dark amber for the summer. How's that going to go over? Like, I'm not totally sure.
Guess we shall see.
Well, it went over well. Like, so now we have to brew it again, and we're like, we got to brew this amber for like when it gets to be like, it was pretty hot and sticky today. Like, people are jumping on the amber train. Apparently.
Man. It was hot as shit the other day, and I had a nice amber ale, and it was beautiful. Yeah, I feel like it's maybe it's an unexpected thing, but I feel like it's a nice compliment to the other crispies, and then to the rest of your, whether it's the IPAs or the table beer or the saisons or anything like that.
I think that's it. I think it just having a multi option, whether it's the stout or the long sleeves or something, but just like people, that's basically it. Like, if you're coming and you're like, okay, you got a bunch of sours, you got IPAs, like this isn't my bag. They're like, okay, you got a lager, okay, you got an amber. It's like,
yeah, we do.
It's like you got the Pilsner or the lager, and it's like, you got a darker thing. Yeah,
you'll always get someone looking for that.
Yeah,
a lot of those people, like it's an interesting one. So we're dabbling in that one, and it seems to be working. We're a little shocked by it. The name doesn't really work with summer. Long sleeves by design was not meant to be a summer beer, but little off brand, but it still works. So
as long as it's working, dude, I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. Nick, honestly, man, thank you again. It's been very cool to connect and to learn more about the brand, and to sort of, get that story and to really dive deep in as we sort of spoke about, we got into the weeds a bit, and that's exactly what we're here for. We're here for the weeds.
Love it.
It's beautiful, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Just thank you for taking the time, and thank you for doing all the things you guys do. And 4 years October, that's amazing. Yeah, you guys. I couldn't imagine Prince Edward County without Slake.
Oh, and neither could I. Thank you so much, man. This has really been a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it, both you guys. I appreciate all the compliments on the beer, and thanks for what you're doing for just raising profile of all us insane people who've decided to do this, whatever we're doing. I don't even know.
It's wild. We have a lot of respect for the insanity of what
Absolutely.
it is that you're doing. And look, this is all the things that are dealing with. I feel like everything's like a temporary thing, and we're on the way back. We're on the way back, God damn it, and people are going to understand it. And I feel like people like you guys, like yourself and your partners and Slake in general as a brand, are pushing craft beer forward and attracting new people and giving people something that's appealing and different and attractive, and that's valuable. That's truly valuable. So the least we can do is highlight that. And
absolutely. And to quote Maddie from the podcast last week, we're looking for reasons to be optimistic now. And I think everything that Slake has to offer is are reasons to be optimistic.
Fucking facts.
Appreciate it.
Nick, you're a champion. We'll wrap this up. We'll finish up off air as we discussed earlier. But dude, thank you again. Where can everyone find Slake in real life and online?
Slakebrewing.com and at LCBOs across the province. And if you're not seeing Slake at an LCBO and you need it, then just talk to your beer manager there and get them to bring it in.
And they'll do it. They'll make it happen. Don't you worry.
Betcha.
They'll make it happen. Love it. Nick, thank you again. We'll wrap this up. Let's go. Nathan, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell.
Ding.
There you go. So you know when the new episode drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast, at Nathan Does Beer. Check out the long form audio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Guys, thank you for watching and listening. Make sure you check out Slake, and we'll see you in the next one. Oh, do you know what, Nick? Really quickly, what's Slake mean?
To quench your thirst.
Is it what language is it?
There you go.
That would be English.
I've heard of that language. I don't know it that well.
It's funny. I will just say very briefly that you have to be if you are older than 55, you stand a 50% chance of knowing that word. If you're under 55, it drops to about 20%. Yeah. And so it's pertinent in two ways. Slake means to quench your thirst, so it's very apropos. It's also a farming term. You slake your land. So to slake your land, there's something about preparing the land in preparation of growing something.
I love that.
So that's the second definition. But to quench your thirst, so this is a slake, and it means it's to quench your thirst. Like this is a slakeable beverage, you would say.
And it surely is.
Slakeable. You goddamn it. I love that. I meant to ask earlier, but I feel like right at the very end, we got it in.
Yeah.
Brother, guys, cheers.
Cheers.
All right,
Bring it home. Cheers, y'all. Peace.